Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Board of Education regular meeting at 7 o'clock p.m. on February 13, 2023. Could all please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, thank you. Board Member Fortuna, will you please read the mission statement and roll call?
Sure. At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in a global community. And then I will do roll call. Candace? Here. Kelly? Here. Angela?
Here.
Danielle?
Here.
Margaret?
Here.
Deb is absent with notice, and Sandra and myself is here. So we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up, I am looking for a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved. Support.
Support. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
So do I have support? Support. Thank you. Any discussion? Superintendent Walmsley?
In your personnel report, we have a couple new hires, a couple resignations, and a couple appointments. So I'll start with the resignations. Ms. Kara, high school math teacher, her last day is the 24th of February. Mrs. Lara Tunda, social worker. Mrs. Miller, social worker. If you recall, Mrs. Miller just started with us in January 23rd. And Ms. Robbins, special education teacher. Maria Harris is the new hire for social worker. Haley Klein for childcare. Wendy Orry, assistant cook. Brian Schultz, custodian. And Colleen Zito is a counselor hired. Child care aide previously appointed by the board. Barbara Battlementi. I think I pronounced it wrong. I apologize if I goofed it up. And Catherine Kelly, or Kate Kelly, for the Green Club advisor. There were no errors brought to my attention regarding the special meeting or the regular meeting from January 23rd or February 8th. As far as the claims and accounts, I received 3 questions. Mrs. Telto asked me 3 questions. One of them was regarding check number 54511. It was regarding a repair to some the middle school bleachers. And she also expressed her concern again as far as we need to look at possibly replacing bleachers in the future or in the near future, particularly at the high school. I think I summarized it. But the repairs on the middle school, the bottom row wasn't going in all the way to lock in place, so as people would stand up, it would move. So we had to repair. Those were the ones that were replaced in 14th spot. We have not had repairs on the high school bleachers recently. However, they are 27 plus years old, so that is one of the items on the items for the bond dollars if there's money left. If there is no money left in the bond, then that might be an item the board needs to look at, is doing a one-time purchase in the future, because they have been very problematic in the past.
They don't close. The one side has a problem closing, correct?
Correct. And the newer bleachers do come with better handrails and so forth as you're getting up and down, but that is one thing. The other question, there was several 10 officials that were paid for, and she asked the question of, do we need to pay the 10, or is it a late payment or an early advance? These 10 officials were from the invitational that was held on January 6th, the cheer invitational, which we had.
Oh, that's when we moved?
Yes.
To a different building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have already been paid, so we don't owe them.
Okay, thank you.
And then check number 54591 for $200. That was for a cheer point tally operator. When I looked into it, this is the person they use to tally all the points from the judges and upload them into the live web system.
So that was payment to that individual
That
for
was
doing
paid-
that?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other than that, I didn't have any other questions or comments or claims and accounts.
Okay. Any questions or discussion now at this moment? Yep, I just want to acknowledge Nancy Laratanda leaving us. She's an amazing human being and has just been such a bright spot and such a huge supporter of our kids. I've had the privilege the last 10 years with the Sandy's Kids fundraiser of working with her, and it's a huge void losing Nancy. I wish her well. When I talked to her last week, I told her I was going to say something about her at the board meeting, and if anyone knows Nancy, that's not something she really wanted to have happen, but I rarely listened. So I wish her well and just thank her for all she has done for our kids here.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion passes. Next up, we have the new portion of our meeting, the Blue Devil Raves, which we are going to take the opportunity to recognize a valued employee and student. Who would like to go first with that? Do we have a board member that would like to go first and share, or
Yeah.
anyone would like to go? Okay, Board Member
Absolutely.
Telto will start us off.
Thank you. I'm going to come around front so everybody can see what I have here. As everyone knows, when COVID hit, Kelly, I don't want to stand in front of you. When COVID hit, it wreaked havoc on our school system, our kids, our athletes, and it particularly wreaked some havoc on our boys that were seniors and members of the varsity baseball team. So our varsity baseball coach, Scott Evans, who is here in the audience with us tonight, Scott, I'd like you to come up here, and the RBI Club, which is his 501c3 group, they created this sign that is going to hang at the baseball field. In 2020, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the high school baseball season was canceled, resulting in our seniors never playing a game. These special student athletes have signed a baseball, which will be buried under home plate. They will forever be a part of every run scored at Richmond High School. And the seniors that are acknowledged: Matt Bartolomucci, Griffin Allure, Brandon Shorman, Colton Stricker, and Andrew Zonger. I just think it's really cool, and it's just a really neat way for these kids who missed out on what really was going to be a great senior year of baseball for them, and that we did this for them. So thank you, Coach Evans and your group. It's amazing.
Thank you, Coach Evans, for going above and beyond for our students. Anybody else? Would anybody else like to share a rave at this meeting, or at this meeting? I can't really follow up Board Member Telto there, but I would like to share a rave by a wonderful employee, Mrs. Shack, the middle school and high school band director. Mrs. Shack's continued dedication to the students of Richmond and community schools is amazing and truly makes a difference in our school. Mrs. Shack's commitment to her students went above and beyond when she held solo ensemble practices when the school was closed for a snow day. And she helped and was there to make sure that her students were prepared for the competition the following weekend. And I would just like to thank her and tell her we appreciate for all you do for our students. Thank you. Anyone else? Superintendent Wamsley, would you like to share?
Well, I have three of them I'd like to. I'm going to talk one from each building. I put this out there to my team about asking me to send some, so you see in your packet there's more that I'll share in the future. But there's three that in particular I want to talk about. I'm going to start at the high school. Nicole Schaefer is our media specialist here. And those of you who don't know her, she's energetic. She's always got a smile on her face and willing to do pretty much anything that needs to be done for the district, particularly the high school. She's been a breath of fresh air. She starts her day every morning at the crossing. That's part of her role. She has taken it upon herself to make it a fun, enjoyable opportunity. I say that. Decorating her stop sign so that the kids can see it. The other day was an orange neon day or whatever, and I don't know, I didn't see her. They came in later that day, but she planned on wearing neon orange and all to get the attention of the kids and so forth. You can see in the little description that was there. She's without hesitation. She's in the hallways. I was over here today, just double checking this with Eric. She was willing to help and do whatever needs to be done to get it ready. And it's just that piece. It's just, I know that's many of our staff do that, but it's just a breath of fresh air to see that at the high school media center, because there's a lot of things that go on here. I'm going to skip down to the other end at the elementary school. Tammy Wilson's being recognized. When she, just looking at her attendance is probably one of the best we have. She's always here. She's dedicated. I remember when we were virtual and I was helping mail packets out. Tammy had individual packets for every student, like many teachers did, but I just happened to be involved with Tammy, Mrs. Wilson, I should say. She actually does her best. She wants the best for our kids and our students, so I thank her for doing that and showing up each and every day. And this is a little out of the ordinary, but I think it's one of our staff members that is in our building. She's a COVID aide, building sub, I should say, Kim Delane. She's at the middle school. She has stepped up, as many of our COVID subs have, but in this particular case, I want to recognize her. She takes upon herself to help with the lesson planning, working out with the other teachers, trying to figure out what needs to be done. Though she's supported by the other teachers at the middle school, she really has had a positive impact with students and staff in the building. So those three I'd just like to recognize and give them thanks for what they do each and every day.
Thank you, and thank you to all those next. Maybe we have to do some students. Do we have any students? Let's make sure we kind of hit some students up next time. But yes.
Can we explain why this came out of our workshop?
Yes.
And because we wanted, as a board, we know all the great things that are happening in our district with students and staff, and too many times it's all the negative stuff that gets out there. And so through our workshop, we all agreed, let's come up with something. And actually, Brian had the whole raves idea.
No, that was mine. I'll give it. That was Renee's.
Okay.
She is planning that to start
Okay.
with the district.
So
and we took it in a little different twist.
Yeah, we kind of had our idea, and then he told us about the raves, so we combined it together. So that's, our thoughts are to do it during our meetings every month so that we can recognize all the great stuff that's going on and the great people.
And did we say what RAVE stands for?
Yeah, we did
Yes,
at the
I did
beginning.
at the
Yes, she
beginning,
did.
but it does,
Yeah.
again, recognizing a valued employee and student. So as I
Yep.
said, maybe next time we need to make sure there are some great students, achievement, and great things going on in our district, and we'll have something prepared for that. And I would like to thank Superintendent Walmsley and Mrs. Staples for helping us with that great idea.
Yep.
And, promoting some positivity. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, next up, we have our school safety update with Superintendent Walmsley and Chief Costello. Thank you. Welcome.
Board members, I asked Chief Costello to come give us an update. As you know, we've had some situations that have occurred in the district over the last month and a half, I would say. And I wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you guys and get the community an update of where we're at. This is still an ongoing investigation, so at that point, I'll turn it over.
I appreciate it, Mr. Walmsley. Thank you for inviting me here. Just a brief synopsis I'll start with is that we received a call regarding a threat, and initially people were putting out on social media that there was a total school threat, and we quickly found out that it was just but it was a threat to one specific individual, and there was a threat written on a note. And so we took that note and we brought it down to the crime lab in Lansing, and we hand-delivered it there to be analyzed for any forensic evidence that we could possibly find. During that procedure, we received a second threat that was delivered to another specific individual, and that was through email. And so we checked out the email, and we, at that particular time, decided that we need to get some specific experts involved in this. And so we contacted the FBI, we contacted Macomb County's computer forensic experts, and we contacted the State Police Special Investigation Division. So during all that, we were conducting interviews. We were going through hours of surveillance tape, and at this point, it is still an open investigation, and we have not developed a particular suspect as of yet. We still do have some interviews left to go, but we have contacted all the experts that we can contact, and we are still looking into it, but at this time we do not have a finality of it. So with that, I can answer some questions as I can, but
Have you heard back from any of the other agencies that you have, like anything that you can share, I guess?
of course. So when we hand-delivered the actual physical piece of evidence, the actual note to the crime lab at Lansing, it took a little bit. We had to deliver it to two different factions within that crime lab. One's called the question documents, and one is for fingerprint evidence. And we had multiple people fingerprinted because there were several people who actually touched that letter. And so to get a comparison of actually who touched it and who, if there was an unknown fingerprint, then we could run it through the database. Unfortunately, no evidentiary value became of that letter. And so then we had to really dig down and do some more interviewing of everybody who was in that area, and even people who weren't in that area that may have an idea who could have delivered this letter or this particular email, and we're still going through those interviews now. So, and yes, we did receive calls back from the state police who have assisted us, and the FBI is basically there in case we need anything at all. They've said they'll give us whatever they want. So.
So I'm just curious because I don't know.
Sure.
What would the state police's role be versus, I guess, what your Richmond Police Department's role is then?
So we have two detectives, and they've been working relentlessly with this. And so being two, that's quite limited. And so they said they would give us people to assist with interviews if we needed that. But when I personally called them, they were probably 4 or 5 shootings that they were dealing with down in the Inkster and Taylor area, and they were a little bit short-staffed as well. So, but they're still with us. They're still willing to help. So.
So just to recap.
Sure.
The whole fingerprint ideas.
Mm-hmm. There was
nothing
nothing there. No. We even had, like I said, the people there for comparison fingerprints, and there were no prints found on the letter itself. So, and frankly, it's my experience that that is relatively common, where no fingerprint value is located like that. It was, as I instructed Superintendent Walmsley, it was a long shot anyway, but you have to do it. So.
I'm sorry, I can't understand.
So we poured through hours of surveillance tape, and you know, everybody's looking for that sort of smoking gun where a cloaked, hooded figure is seen opening the door, you know, but that wasn't the case. It was a very busy area. The particular office where this person was threatened is down a hallway, and you can go down the hallway and you can be seen going down the hallway, but you can't be seen going into the office. And so there were multiple people going down that hallway, and those people have been interviewed since. So, and also, Superintendent Walmsley wanted us to help out with each of the schools and have an officer on duty at each of the schools, and that's been very successful. However, with our staffing, it couldn't be sustained, and so we're in talks right now with Superintendent Walmsley and Preston Trend to see what other avenues we can go down.
So we're interviewing, we're not just interviewing people that work in the school system. It's a wide range of interviewing and collecting information.
Yes, and no, it is not strictly inclusive to people who were just in the office that day. We're finding out that there's a lot of people that we need to talk to that may have some information, and maybe on this particular platform, if somebody does have information, they can call the police department or Detective Roberts and let him know. So,
Because for just my personal, and as I'm sure it is to you, but this is extremely important, and I know it is to you, but it's the talk that's out in the community of it's never going to get solved, and good Lord, it might happen that way. But so that's why my question of it's not just people here, it's broader. The net is wide.
right. Yes, it is very wide, and to touch on that, there has been significant talk on social media. I'm not going to say most.
You can.
A majority is factually inaccurate, and
That's what social media is, factual inaccurate.
but it shouldn't be accepted that way. And so, and we can take a stand against that. And with our social media, I always tell my people we post stuff on it. Just don't even comment, because a lot of times people are trying to bait you into saying certain things, and then it makes you look bad. And I frankly don't even look at them, the comments, and I just don't want misinformation out there. And if the information is going to come from anyone, it's going to come from me. And if they need factual statements, I'll be the one giving those. So. There was a lot of talk saying that we never contacted the FBI, that we never contacted the state police, and that we never contacted the cybercrimes unit of the county. Those are all false. We're still in touch with the cybercrimes unit regarding the email. That one, again, is a long shot. There's a lot of ways that people can mask their identities through email, and we're sifting through those right now. So.
Thank you.
It's unfortunate. I know you guys are doing everything you can, but so many of us have watched so many TV shows, and everything gets solved in those 43 minutes, so I think that has a lot to do with it, where everyone's wondering why it takes so long. So I do appreciate the time and effort that you guys are putting in. And I have to say, my children absolutely loved, and I know the other kids doing it, was on a lot of the Facebook pages, having your officers in the schools. They really did. I think, great for the parents to know that we had an LEO inside the schools during that time, and just great PR, with the kids. I mean, they know, unfortunately, some of my kids by name now. I'm not sure how well that is.
It hasn't reached my desk.
Cool.
Yeah,
So,
that's good. Thank you, and the officers do enjoy it. There are long days. I know multiple times officer works a 10-hour shift, and they'll do 8 hours in the school. And those are long days, but I can say that they've been rewarding for the officers. Unfortunately, as I told Mr. Walmsley, the sustainment probably isn't realistic, but at this particular time, it is enjoyable for them. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions for Chief Costello? Thank you for taking the time to update us.
Yes, thank you.
Your statement about people seeing it on TV.
Yeah.
That is, I think, the hardest part, because that is what people are looking for in that 43-minute episode. And,
Yes, we are such an instant answer. Internet's in front of us. We get answers the second we look it up. I mean, I don't have to tell my kid to go find an encyclopedia or a dictionary. I go, look it up on your phone. It's in your hand. Don't ask me. So that does. It really, it makes your job a lot harder, because people think that's how stuff goes.
And one of my first meetings, if not the first meeting, I told Mr. Walmsley, that that's, it's false that it's going to take more than 28 minutes. So.
Or 28 days.
Yes, clearly. Thank you.
And Police Department, and your continued support in keeping our students safe.
I'd just like to add to this, we have, regarding crisis alert badges, we are in the process of doing the installation part. Our plan is in spring break to have everything installed and testing out before the end of this school year, operational. So we have met with IT, various, to make sure all the systems need to get put in place. Last week, we had a Zoom meeting with the chief and the EMS, Jeff White, to talk about how they would get notified and when they would get notified, so that they are now part of that process as we move forward. As far as night locks, the night lock shades have been installed in probably 95%. There's still a couple rooms and windows that they need to be installed in, and then we are still moving with the night lock door locks, so that will be coming down.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Can I just say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Steve, I can't thank you enough. They have been very supportive of the district, the officers. Sometimes it's been a Thursday call. Can we extend it one more week as we go through this? But as the chief has said, this isn't a sustainable model. And so we're in the conversation, what could that look like in the future? And obviously that would then be brought to the board to have that conversation. But they have been outstanding.
It's very important to me, too. I don't know if you are all aware, but my kids from preschool all the way through graduation went through this school district, and so it's important to me to get this, one, solved, and two, to make everybody feel safe within the school district. So, thank you.
Education Month. Mrs. Staples, Mrs. Zabel.
How am I doing? Can you hear me? Okay, just making sure. Okay. All right, so February is Career and Technical Education Month. This is an exciting month for us to be able to celebrate our programs, talk about updates to our brand new programs, be able to even maybe get a sneak peek as to what we're planning for the future. So we're going to get started, and joining us is Ms. Zabo, our high school principal, as well as CTE director. Here is the different CTE pathways available in the state of Michigan, just kind of an overview. Friday was our Macomb CTE Award ceremonies, where our students and business partner were honored. I'd like to thank Mrs. Telto for attending. It was a wonderful event, seeing young people being celebrated all across Macomb County, including our own. So, you know me, I love data. So let's talk about data for just a second, because this is really exciting. Last year, we had 237 enrollments in a CTE program. This year, we have 383 enrollments. You can see the jump that we had currently. Over the past few years, we've been able to expand our offerings, such as adding an education pathway, a computer science pathway, and an automotive technician pathway. Another great piece of data I'd like to share with you is our female and male student enrollment. Our female student enrollment has also seen an increase from 78 total females enrolled in a CTE program all the way to 137 females enrolled.
Can I interject you?
Of course.
For those of you who were on the board in, I believe it was 14, that would have been you, Margaret. Or if you sat in the audience, we received a CTE audit that hadn't been done in this district since 1978, I think it was. And in that audit, one of the things, actually Deb would know because she was actually part of the plan that we had to do. One of the things that we had to focus on was how are we going to raise the number of females in our CTE program. So we've definitely reached that goal and on it. So, sorry.
No, so this is just wonderful. Wonderful news, great pieces of data and information for all of you tonight. Some updates from the state.
So a couple of the
I just want to make sure you can hear me. So a couple of things. Our CTE program is switching from segments to competencies. This is a multi-year plan that the state of Michigan is executing, and each year they're choosing specific programs that are switching from the segments to competencies. Last year, the business management and our EMT programs switched over. This year, I'll be working with our new CTE business teacher. She will be switching over the marketing and the accounting or finance program, and then also the computer programming teacher, Mrs. Compow. What that ultimately means is that we're going to be going to the MISD. We're going to be spending an entire day together as a district, the two of them working with me, and really looking at what that program is made of and how we're going to structure it here within Richmond. One of the key components of that is also a change that the state made in terms of how we're going to be weighting our funding. And so our 61A funding is not only program-based, but it's also determined by the number of segments or competencies a student completed. And so some of our programs, like EMT, carries a larger weight in terms of they call it the student advancement weight, but it's a more expensive program to run. And so ultimately, depending on the program, there's a different weight or formula that's used at the state level. One of the things that the state has done is that they've added a level called a concentrator plus. And so ultimately, what we're striving for in our programs is to make sure that we have students complete at least 8 of the segments or 2 of the competencies and earn one of the credentials that our program offers. And so what I've been doing with all of our teachers throughout this year is to make sure that in our programs, they're at least at a minimum hitting a minimum of those 8 segments if they're on the old system, or at least 2 of the PCCs, which are the new competencies. And really what that will do is that will allow us to gain more funding through the 61A allotment. And then with that, that allows us to build our programs and bring more equipment into the building. So that's really the focus of the state at the Perkins 5 level, is what they're trying to do is really transition all of these programs over. And it is a multi-year process, which is why you're still kind of seeing in this weighting formula the segments and the competencies, but ultimately everyone will be functioning on competencies within the next couple of years.
Can I say, what's an old one and a new, what does that mean? What's an example?
An old one was like a segment, so it was just very long, all written individual standards.
Like a specific CTE course?
Yes.
Like, was it the heavy equipment? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Certain and new courses are different. What's the?
So what the state is doing is the segments were basically like your standards. What ultimately the state is doing with the competencies is, for example, in some of the programs, there are 900 some segments or standards that teachers are expected to hit. With the competencies, you're seeing a little bit more broad of a scope. And so when looking at, I was just actually looking at some of the competencies for our education program, and one of the overviews was classroom management, and there was just two, might be 3, broad competencies under that versus the segments, which were very, very specific, and there was a lot. And so I think it's more of a broader scope.
And it organizes it into clusters, so your A clusters will be like safety and those type of things. B is more like your instruction, so your A for education might be going over confidentiality, those kind of like laws and kind of safety that pertains to that. Automotive, it's wearing your safety glasses and those kind of safety things. And then B is more of the content-specific instructional standards, if you will.
Okay, so if I'm following, then what you're saying is it doesn't matter whether we've had heavy equipment for years or the new teacher cadet, everybody's going to be.
They're all going to go.
Yes. And they have it kind of planned out, obviously, gradually along the way. And so I think the state is just looking at, knowing that it is a big undertaking for many of the CTE programs and buildings, a gradual process. So they select a certain number of programs each year.
Thanks.
So what I did, just to give a little overview of our programs, is I put together a little video. It's only like 3 minutes long, but just to kind of give you an overview of what's been going on in our classrooms. And so fingers crossed, we've tested this 100 times.
The vision of Michigan's career and technical education system is to provide learners with access to equitable, high-quality CTE programs that are aligned to rigorous academic and technical standards and career-ready practices. And that is exactly what we're doing here at Richmond High School. Our CTE programs have 4 areas of focus: classroom instruction, laboratory learning, work-based learning, and student leadership. In all 4 areas, students have the opportunity to acquire skills that prepare them for entry, advancement, and/or continuing education, whether it be at a 4-year university, community college, trade school, or directly into the workforce.
3, 2.
Through participation in CTE programs, students have the opportunity to work with state-of-the-art equipment that is present in industry. Additionally, students can earn credentials or certifications in a variety of areas such as ServSafe and Microsoft Office programs. One of the key areas of CTE programs is the work-based learning component. Work-based learning can include career awareness, career exploration, career preparation, or career training. Each of our programs is required to include, at a minimum, 1 work-based learning experience in their class, with the majority of our teachers finding ways for students to participate in a variety of experiences that expose students to activities that are aligned with academic, technical, and employability skills.
This is Richmond TV Action News. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Currently, 253 students at the high school enrolled in 1 or more CTE programs. This encompasses approximately 48% of our student body. Our goal is to continue to increase program offerings that appeal to a variety of student interests, as the state graduation rate of students who are CTE completers is almost 96%. Career and technical education programs are not for a certain type of student. CTE courses develop leadership and employability skills that can be transferred to many post-secondary options, no matter what type of career is in the student's future.
So the hope with that is just to be able to share kind of what's going on within the building, and also making sure that we're able to kind of share it and use it as marketing for our community as well. Okay. There we go. So what's next for Richmond High School? I've been working with each of the teachers and really looking at ways that we can use our 61A funding to kind of beef up our programs, but then also make sure that we're offering great experiences for our students. One of the things I'm most excited for is our TV and broadcasting teacher, Mr. Robbins, who's here with us. He is going to be FAA drone certified this summer. We were presented with an opportunity, and along with Romeo Community Schools and Utica, we are going to be offering our teachers the ability to get drone certified. When I was sitting in his advisory board meeting, one of his business partners had shared how that's such a huge part of TV and broadcast right now, is being able to fly a drone. And when this opportunity came across my plate, I said, this is something that we have to get involved in. So he will be certified. He will be able to sit for an FAA 107 license. It's actually 2/3 of the way to a pilot's license, and he then will be able to train our students in this. And so we are working to embed this in the level 2 course. And so when I talked previously about changing some of those segments, what he's looking at is moving some of his segments to that first year class, so we have more of the concentrator plus students, and then students who wish to take the second year course will have that time built in to also be certified as a drone pilot themselves. Another exciting transition that we're making is we are looking at moving our EMT program here on campus. So as of now, our students are traveling every day over to the Richmond Lennox station, and it's great experience for them. But one of the things that we're realizing is that our students in the building don't actually know a lot about our EMT program. And so I'm working with Jeff White as well as our instructor, Sarah Glanville, and we are looking to increase the visibility amongst our students. So we are looking at purchasing a high-fidelity simulation mannequin. So it's a $40,000 piece of equipment that is fully functioning that our students will be able to work on. We're also going to obviously need to provide supplies that are required through the state of Michigan. And then we're also looking at purchasing an ambulance that they are taking out of circulation, having it wrapped and having it visible and here on campus as a Richmond High School fully functioning ambulance that students will be able to use, practice, and that we still will be able to use at football games or any other events. So those are two really big things that I'm focusing on with those teachers. We also are having our Devil's Den reboot, so we're encouraging parents to come and community members to come on campus during conferences on March 8th and 9th. Our new business teacher is working with a few suppliers and vendors to make sure that our Devil's Den is fully stocked with up-to-date apparel and merchandise, and so we're encouraging everyone to come out for those two events. Also, we are looking at our experiential, that word is so hard to say sometimes, education class, which will be in its first year of implementation. We will hear a little bit more about this in the course catalog presentation, but ultimately for students that wish to continue their placements, whether it's at Lee Elementary or at the middle school for next year, because they will have completed a lot of the safety trainings and the certifications, we're really looking at getting them into those placements right off the bat as early as September. And so that's something that we're looking at, really trying to get our students visible with our younger students within the district. Our culinary arts program is underway. They are looking at actually adding adaptive testing to our ServSafe test. As of right now, the ServSafe test, which is required for all of our students to open up the cafe, making sure that they're following health department guidelines. There is really no adaptive version for students that might need that. And so at the Michigan Career and Education Conference in Grand Rapids, Chef Christie was able to find out a little bit more about the ServSafe testing and making sure that we have access for all students that might be enrolled in that program. And then other great news is that our auto tech program is transitioning to the dealership on February 27th. I know the hope was to get them over there a little bit sooner, but as you drive down Main Street every day, you see that, it's coming along, but they will be in there in the next couple of weeks. And so that's another exciting piece of the programs coming up.
So, we're not through expanding, so some of the proposal courses that we have to be able to continue our CTE programs is you can see these three courses. Being able, esports and master coding would be the next step. If students took the computer science and video game development course, we're trying to create a pathway for computer science for our students. They would transition into AP computer science principles, which is an advanced placement and college level course that they can also count as CTE, and an introduction to theater, paving a fine arts CTE pathway here at Richmond. As you can see, we had great turnout for Puffs, and we have the Little Mermaid production coming up, but to be able to house it here during the day would be a dream. So, sneak peek into our new programs. Does anybody have any questions about some of the new programs or any of the updates to our existing programs?
No questions. That's super exciting. Very exciting. Okay, so theater, how is that CTE? How does that?
Because it's it's the fine arts and communication pathway. Arts and communication. So what we're going to do is create just a general introduction to theater. So it would have the competencies for both the theater experience as the acting. It's going to include playwriting, so analyzing scripts and looking at famous plays, as well as the technical side of theater, which is the lights, the sound booth, stage management and those movements and everything like that, song, music. So it's very encompassing as to what all of those competencies will be. But it'll be a great experience for our students who really immerse themselves into theater art.
And this, we're looking for 23, 24.
Yes, ma'am.
Year end in 23, 24. So with all of this, we know we've got people that are going to teach those classes. But we're looking.
Once or if these courses are proposed in our course catalog, then we would formally post to positions.
Some of those we have in our mind in terms of scheduling.
I would think so. But
Mhm.
I just asked anyways.
But as we did this past year, it's really going to be driven by students. In the computer science, I think we have the largest number of students.
That's right. So what started this new program kind of launch is that we conducted a student survey. And surprising computer science, we were looking at students that we were sending to different districts. We didn't really have a computer science pathway here at the high school. We had a great presence here at the middle school. So, as a curriculum director, you tend to look at golden nuggets of what we do really, really well and try to expand on those things. So we had an amazing program at the middle school, and why not bring that up for our students at the high school level. And yes, it was the most requested course with the new course catalog approval from you all last year. So I know we're going to have enough to run several sections. And in the spring, we're going to be opening up a Richmond arcade where everybody's invited to come in and actually play the games that the students created themselves. And there's people even from the county, Mark Muzzin, who's very interested in our programs and what we're offering and what we're doing here, and inviting other people in Macomb County to come check out what we're doing.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Would students, is it possible for students to partake in two separate CTE programs?
Absolutely. So, for example, that 370 enrollment number, that could be students that are all in culinary as well as computer science. It just depends on the schedule and when those are offered to be able to see if they can fit more than one in their course schedule.
We have students, when I was showing Renee the video, she said, well, your number is different. The number I had used, the 253 number, that's individual students. And so that doesn't account for students that are enrolled in multiple courses. So 48% of our student body is taking a CTE class, but that doesn't mean that a student might not be in marketing 2, but also be starting the accounting pathway. And we have kids that are in 2 business classes and taking culinary because they're a senior, and they have that flexibility. And so those numbers I think will continue to increase as we continue to offer more courses.
Mine aren't in high school yet, but is this a whole semester or a whole year, half a year?
These would be full year courses. The AP Computer Science is a full year course. Esports and Master Coding is a full year course. An introduction would be, I believe, a 2-hour block for 1 full year.
And all the current CTE classes are a full year to make sure that they reach the competencies. Some are double block, so automotive is a full year and a double block, but there's other classes that are a full year and just a single block, but not semester classes.
Right.
Going to the culinary arts program, and you guys may have already talked about this, but have you guys ever thought about growing your own, fresh vegetables, things like that? Maybe planting our own trees or?
I don't know if Chef has ever talked about that, and I also don't know if that, what the health department regulations would be, but that's definitely something I can bring to her and ask and see if she knows anything about that, but I'm not familiar with that.
We did a small scale.
Oh, okay.
Where she worked with the CI teacher, employers, from using the greenhouse, and those students then took that food and prepared something with it. It wasn't a scale to use at the restaurant level, but it was understanding from where the soil was like.
There is an agriculture CTE pathway. I think that when you see some of the course proposals in the course catalog, one of which being environmental science as a new type of science pathway for our students, this could definitely grow our interest in that capacity to be able to grow in that area.
And that could count towards credits for graduation.
Yes.
This is
Cafe.
Devil's Cafe.
Or I meant, I'm sorry, sorry.
They sell chips at the student
Yeah.
store. It's,
I was gonna say, most kids
Lots
eat
of
lunch
them.
in the Devil's Den.
I looked in the window the
Yeah.
other day of the Devil's Den, and I even told us, they're all like, this looks so good.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I just had that on my mind, so that's the other thing I was gonna say, so I apologize.
No, it's
The cafe, is it open yet, or?
It's not open yet. I believe that they have the schedule set for their ServSafe testing, and so because of that, once that takes place, my understanding is that then they'll open, but I don't know specifically what that date is off the top of my head. I want to say in the next couple of weeks, though.
Okay, I know I visited last year, and I was very pleasantly surprised, it was really, really good.
The pasta that you saw in the video is
yeah.
Well, we get to sample all the time, so.
And it smells so good. You walk down the hall and you're like, oh.
So one last thing I just wanted to end with was celebrations. We were able to honor 3 individuals. Every year, the McT Group, which is the Macomb Career and Technical Education Administrators Association, we meet once a month and do all things CTE for 2, 3, 4 hours on a Friday morning. And one of the greatest things that we get to do is we get to honor 2 seniors and then a business partner that has supported us here within school. And so the 2 honorees, you will see up there, Isabella and Micah. Isabella was nominated by her teacher cadet or education general teacher, Miss Smallwood. Micah was nominated by his computer programming teacher. And then Chef Christie was able to not only honor her former teacher, her Chef Nick, but he is someone that's come in and has helped support our programs already this year and I know in the past. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were able to celebrate them as well, even though they were recognized already at the county level, but making sure that they were recognized here today. So just a great way to end CTE presentation, and then we have 2 more weeks of CTE month, so I'll continue to make sure that I'm sharing out positive information of the impact that these programs have, not only on our building, but specifically the community. So, thank you.
And I want to make a special note to thank our CTE director, Ms. Zabo, for all of the amazing work that she's been doing to improve our existing programs and launch new pathways for kids. So thank you. You're welcome. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
You know, I was looking at that list in the PowerPoint. In 9 years, we've doubled the amount of CTE courses that we've offered you. And we are now in a position, I think I can say that, we do not send any Richmond students to another district.
None. We got to put it in red in the course catalog, guys. All right.
It's huge.
All right, I'm going to jump in before you start.
Okay.
Which is a perfect segue, because one of the challenges that we've always faced, particularly at the high school level, in growing CTE programs or any program, is there's so many kids, and you only have so many hours in a day. And oftentimes, when you look at a student that's in the honors or the AP track, their schedule is filled. They never have an opportunity to choose a course, a particular CT course, that they might want to go into. Last year, when we negotiated the last teacher contract, we negotiated in that contract that beginning next school year, the 23-24, the high school will move to a 7-period day. So what does that mean? Number one, it means we will mimic the middle school schedule. We had a committee that met the month of January to kind of work out logistics stuff and timing. So up here on the screen in front of you, and you have it in your packet, would be what the classes at the high school moved to 50-minute block classes. But what that allows is every students will have 7 classes rather than 6. As Ms. Zabo and Mrs. Staples mentioned, many of our classes, CT classes, are 2-hour blocks. And so a student currently may only have 1 hour left in their day and are not able to take any CT courses that are 2-hour block. You're going to see more of this when we go into the course catalog. But the biggest change is when we start looking at graduation requirements. Currently, in a 6-period day at the high school, if I take no classes, no high school credits at the middle school, there are 24 possible credits you can earn at the high school in your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. Our graduation requirement is currently 22 of 24. Beginning next year, we will begin phasing in the graduation requirement. So if you look at the current seniors, they're graduating, again, 24 possible credits, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, you can see on the chart, 6 hours a day, totals 24. Basically 92% of their classes we're expecting them to pass for graduation. For juniors, next year, beginning the 23-24 school year, they would actually have 7, so they will have 25 possible. And so the recommendation that's in the course catalog is that it moves up to 23 classes that are required to graduate, which still maintains a 92% graduation credit. Current sophomores, moving next year as 11th and 12th graders, would move up to a 24 credits to graduate. Current freshmen would move up to 25 credits to graduate, and the current current 8th graders who will be entering the high school will have a 26 credits to graduate. Again, it's maintaining roughly that 92%. So we aren't anticipating this being a challenge. I think some of the things you're going to see in the course catalog tonight is we are building not only additional CT courses, because it has always been my goal. I still believe every child needs to experience one CT course, and if we can pick the pathway that matches what they want to go into, because there is a lot of value to a CT course, and to have 48% of the student body at this point in CT, that's pretty remarkable. I don't know how many districts can say 50% of their student bodies in CT. But it also then, you're going to see in this that by moving to a 7-period day, we can provide some specific interventions for students who are struggling. It is no secret that the Algebra 1 failure rate countywide, statewide, is something all districts are facing. And so this will allow us to begin putting possibly some 2-hour blocks in for math to help students so that they stay on track and get the foundation they need for courses in the future. So these are some of the things that you're going to see. So the communication to parents regarding this 7-period day will actually start from me with a letter to them that will be going out at the beginning of next week prior to the course selection, which happens in roughly 2 weeks. Are there questions about the 7-period day?
So this would start
This is going to start next fall.
September.
All right, with that,
Do we need to hire more teachers?
I don't anticipate us hiring more teachers. I think what it also is going to allow us to do, to lower class sizes. So for instance, right now we have about 4 sections of an Algebra 1. You have about 120-ish kids in a class. That's nearing 30 kids in a class. All right, that's still under current contract language less than what the current contract language. Our goal is to create that 5th section, lower the class sizes so we are minimizing the number of preps a teacher has. So instead of someone teaching Algebra 1 for 4 hours and maybe picking up a geometry, and again, this is an ideal situation, it's not necessarily current. They may have all 5 sections of Algebra 1. And maybe it's one other section in the 6-period day or 7-period day. But that you're going to see that in the course catalog presentation. Other questions? All right, switch it back.
So joining me for the course catalog proposal is going to be our high school principal, Ms. Sabo, and our middle school principal, Ms. Morella. Let's get going. Here we go. So on the first page, we just have some personnel changes. Our first major change comes with starting with middle school mathematics course descriptions. that begin on page 12. So to start this conversation, I did give you all a one-sheet kind of informational update, if you will, because I do have new board members, so I wanted you to kind of look to see why we're making the changes that we would like to propose. Due to FERPA, I am unable to discuss some of this data if you have questions about it, because the subgroups are under 30 students. Anytime you have a subgroup of 30 students or less, I am unable to talk about it in open session because it identifies the students. That's why I gave this piece of paper to you. It does have your names on them where I need to collect them at the end, but just kind of giving you some information as to what our current SAT math results were, the percent of not proficient, percent of partially proficient, percent of proficient, and advanced proficient. At the SAT, the PSAT, what it breaks down as far as how many students. And you can see, we did some historical research as far as what students scored, going back from last year's test results, what course or pathway they were on back in the year 17 and 18 to show you just how many students passed of that cohort in those courses, as well as our trend data. If you have any questions regarding that, I can see if I can try to answer those. And if you have a question, please do not mention the bottom number with the students that are subgroups less than 30, please.
So I'm going to interject. So looking at that data and looking at data over time, we started asking the questions, is the current math projection, the course, the offering, helping or hurting our students? And our ultimate goal is, and I don't mean intentionally hurt, I mean giving them the advantage of where they need to be positioned when they take that SAT or ACT if they choose, because oftentimes that provides scholarships and opens doors to post-secondary programs. So the math that you're going to see here presented tonight is a realignment of the course offerings and when they're offered and where they're offered.
And I'd also like to say that we've been doing math professional development throughout the year. We've also been in consultation with 2 math consultants, one in which is Dr. Schrock, who's also a member of the National Council of Mathematics, and Mr. Scott Block. So we have been in consultation regarding these changes with 2 math consultants as well that would also recommend this pathway, if you will.
Math specifically for me anyways, with my situation with my child, I mean, she's using up her extracurricular class all year to get extra math help. So, I mean, and, you know, so that takes away from, so she's basically going to school all day and it's all work. So I would like to see this be better somehow, some way.
I think that we all know that we were coming here tonight with a plan to change after that data presentation. So I think that it was just a clear expectation that things have to change. And so this is a proposal that we have in order to make the change that we need for kids.
Thank you.
So if you think of this, when we start looking at math, you know, for us math people, you have the bell curve. We've got a majority of the students, and that's going to be a path that majority of them take. But we also have kids that are on the high end, and we have kids who struggle. And so we now are defining what that looks like in each of the grades, beginning in the middle school and actually up through the high school. Because there were, as Ms. Zabel found out, there were multiple directions a student may go. And we want to make sure we're educating and guiding a student in the path that they're going to be the most successful in and what support they need. The 7-period day, as you're going to see, is going to allow us to provide some of those supports right in the structure.
And give them an opportunity.
And give them an opportunity to still have the courses and success. My goal as superintendent is to get that failure rate down. That's our number one goal, so that they have the basic and success, or the foundation to move on into higher math. So, turn it over back over.
Right. And you're gonna see my elementary come out, so I'm gonna call this the Goldilocks. You know, we have to find the best fit for pathway for students. And so I also have backup documentation for you as far as what our current scope and sequence is, as well as what our proposed scope and sequence is, just in a nice 2-pager, so you can see what we're currently doing in the scope the students take in math, and then the proposed scope. So you can see all of that laid out for you in your backup. All right. So our first change is we would like to take out offering Algebra 1 in 7th grade. You can see through the piece of paper that I gave you how many students passed last year when they were on that pathway. We would like to alter it into an advanced mathematics course. This class can be used for them to then take Algebra 1. They're starting their 8th grade year. This will help build a gap for how many years they have Algebra 1 to taking the SAT. Part of algebra is one of our weakest area of the SAT analysis.
Can I just ask, what does that, where it says on these course offered virtually, yes?
So anytime we have a core course, that means the students still can opt into our virtual program where they would have their teacher, they would just access the class through Teams and get their work through Schoology.
So from the pupil accounting perspective, we have to identify what courses we're offering virtually. That is going to be becoming a conversation that, as we near the end of this year, the whole point, and I have said this from day one, I am not a virtual superintendent. I mean, I believe in in-person instruction. I believe there's a lot of value to that. But when COVID hit, we came together as a school district to offer a virtual option. I think there was like 150 families that chose it that first year. We were down to about 20. We're down to about 10 maybe now. I want to start getting out of the business of virtual instruction and making that maybe the exception. Maybe we have a medical issue and that's the reason, but to begin phasing it out. So right now, because we still have a virtual option, that's why you see that in the course catalog.
Okay, but if the statement is, I want to be moving out of it, I don't understand why we're offering a course that's virtually. That doesn't make sense to me.
Because if we can either move out of it completely, or we can move out of it with limited acceptance. Maybe there's a medical condition or something that a student needs to be, can't be physically in school, but we can still maintain them in the school.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that different than saying this course is in a course offering book, a course that is offered virtually, tells me that we're offering virtual option? Isn't it different if my child has medical reasons or whatever, that we have the ability for Teams and to help that child do virtual? To me, that's different than putting in a course offering book that this is can be a virtual class. Because, wait, I'm not done. Because I thought, and you guys were, that whole with COVID, with the virtual, yep, that's what we had to do. And I thought our conversation was, as a district, that it was going to, this was to get us through this. And I know you have said that we did have, the beginning of the school year, we still had some parents that,
we have some still now,
with COVID-related stuff wanted to come. So if we're phasing out, and that's what I'm a believer of, then I don't know why it's listed in a course offering book that it's a virtually offered class.
Well, I'm going to address it two ways. First of all, that statement was in last year's book. We put it in all of our courses last year. This is just highlighted for this year because that's a new course. That's why you're seeing it. So we moved that last year because for pupil accounting rules, we had to have the board approve what courses were going to be. So as you look through the course catalog, there are some that say no.
A lot of our CTE programs.
Like AIS, that's a no.
I know, I'm just asking why it says yes.
Because as of today, the plan is still having a virtual option.
Okay, but again, my question's still not being answered. And if I'm not asking it correctly, next school year, course offering book that a class is going to be virtual. If we
Well, I
want to
guess that would
phase
be the
out
question
of
the board needs to answer and address that.
That's
We
why I'm
have- We have
asking it.
about 10 families that are virtual. If we don't offer a virtual option, potentially those 10 families are gone.
it. Okay.
So do we want
Well, and I-
to make that, no, I'm just saying, do we want to take now that position? Because you are absolutely right. The whole issue with COVID was to get us through. It was an agreement that we had with the teachers. Virtual is in the contract with the teachers, though we can choose not to run it. The difference I see between now and where we were in 2021 school year is there are situations where we have medical issues.
Yes.
That we can maintain that student in our district,
Yes.
but we have to have a virtual option for them.
But can they be qualified as a homebound, or is that
Oh, I'm not
different?
even addressing
No, I'm
homebound.
not-
I'm not even addressing
no, I'm
that.
not-
But wouldn't that be a virtual student who can't come to school? It's just those 10 that you're talking about?
No, well, homebound
Couldn't they
is the
qualify
whole,
as homebound?
you've got to have the medical, there's all the doctor, that's a whole completely different pupil accounting animal. I'm just strictly asking the question. If my child, for whatever reason, a medical something comes up, or if I'm still leery, whatever, only certain classes can my child, is there a virtual option?
Correct.
I would think, okay, but I would think the answer to that would be no. That it should be all of our class. If we're going to say 10 families, so the 10 families that have students, their kids can only take the classes that have virtual options?
Which are most of the classes.
The required courses are all available virtually as of right now.
Okay.
The only ones that aren't are some of our CTE hands-on electives. It would not
Which makes
be
sense, yes,
any
I
of the
get all
Michigan
that.
curriculum involving graduation.
Okay.
I think what she's worried about is, so
Right.
you only have 10 families this year, but if it still has it in here, what if we have back to 20 families next year?
Well, I think it's
hard to
important-
phase it out if it's still offered as, and you could have.
Well, I guess
more people
I would
sign up.
approach this way. If as a board, you guys want to make the decision, we're out of the virtual business, then I was not prepared to have that conversation.
And I certainly
And
wasn't,
again, what I'm saying is,
I simply, it jumped out at me when I looked at my stuff. It says it's virtual. This class is offered virtual. So I look at that, Brian, as how we did the virtual, that my kid can sit in Mrs. Durst's classroom and be part of it through virtually.
correct.
Okay. We were doing all of that because it was COVID-related stuff. Now, we still have some families we're serving. If the idea is we still want to serve these families, then that's the answer to it. It's the answer to me saying, why are classes still being virtual? And since I'm the only one that's talking, I must be the only one that
Well,
it's
I
a
would like-
concern
yeah.
to.
No, I think I see your concern because I have it as well. Like if I were a student looking at this, say a freshman, I'd be like, wow, I can take this virtually. Like you might think in your head, I can take
Okay,
some
let me
courses
back up
virtually.
here.
So maybe
And
that's
maybe-
where-
Can I
maybe I'm-
interject here?
But I
Let me
do
back up,
agree with keeping
because we're off track here.
Right, right.
Okay.
And maybe because I'm misunderstanding.
Or I am.
We give the course catalog to our families. If you want to be a virtual family and student, we don't let you pick and choose. I want to be virtual 1 hour and I'm coming in person 2
Right,
hours.
right, right.
You are either
Right, right.
virtual or you are not virtual.
Right,
And when we started the virtual,
Okay.
we did it every 10 weeks.
yes.
You could switch. I think it was might have been 5 weeks.
I think it was 5 weeks.
I think every
First
5 weeks you
semester.
could switch. And then we said
It was 5
by quarter. This year, unless there's a medical documentation, you have to commit to a semester. So once you lock in, you're in. Have we had exceptions? Yes. So it was to save on, I'll give a hypothetical. I'm going to put all my kids on virtual for a sports team so that I don't get risk of getting COVID so I can continue to play. And that was played out.
Right.
That's not the purpose of virtual. Virtual was to get us through everything related to COVID.
Okay,
So right now, if I'm a parent, you have to sign it. You have till the first Friday after the end of the semester. After that, you're locked into where you're at. So you're either 100% virtual or you're 100% in person.
Okay, I think I got your blood pressure up in a
No,
direction, hold on,
I'm-
in a
it's not
direction
up.
that I
I'm just-
didn't necessarily want you to go. I was simply asking, I saw the virtual. So if the answer is, we have these families, and they're going to be able to choose these classes, and if that's board that we want to do that for next school year, I don't have any problem with it. I was simply asking about it. But I think it should be something that we should look through after this next school year, 23-24. What does that look like? Or is that something we still want to be doing? That's simply what I was asking.
The virtual side, offer it. And
Yes.
that has been the plan, to come to this board and say, at some point, we're getting out of the business.
Well, then, that's all you had to say to me when I first asked that question, and then we would have been okay.
But the whole point of this being in there is for pupil accounting rules. You have to have a board-approved document that shows what courses are
Yes,
offered
I'm well aware of
virtually.
that, yep.
So that's the reason.
Okay.
From a side point also, financial perspective, I mean, having the virtual, I mean, as a district, that ability, wouldn't we be getting some grants or some extra funding of some sort for having that on there?
No.
We wouldn't necessarily be getting more, but we would retain families that would like a virtual option for various reasons, mostly to do with health concerns.
You would maintain that FTE for those students, so that money is staying here with us.
But the flip
opposed to
side
them doing
is
something different.
the stress, the added burden in the classroom to teach
Yes.
in person and virtual
Yes.
is where we're looking at that number. And at some point, is it worth it anymore? Or just, are we at a point where we are in person? Is there many virtual options out there for training?
That's a perfect answer.
Great. Our next change comes to page 15. So with our new science curriculum, one of the great changes that was made to the 6-8 science department was we used to be a domain science department, meaning that one grade would teach one of the areas of science, such as physical science, life science, or earth science. We have now done an integrated science model, so all my science people are very happy with this, which means that you get a combination of physical science, your earth science, your life science, as well as a STEM standards as well, all in each grade. So we just made those changes to those course descriptions.
And I just like to correct, no shot, that's Wednesday, I get that.
Right. The next change we have is on page 20. It's our art pathway 612 is to streamline students into the 3D art so that they can progress into basic design. It counts as a high school credit. This was a change that was in consultation with our middle school art teacher as well as our high school art teacher. In fact, it's my goal to meet with all of the elective teachers to talk about what does a pathway look for art, what does a pathway look like for band, for music, for fine arts, and all of those things, so we can sit with this catalog and look as what is a natural progression for these students that are exploring these particular pathways. So this was one change that was made in consultation with them. And of course, 3D, you get to play with the kiln. Okay. So the next page is on 21. You'll notice that throughout the catalog, the several prerequisites have been altered to reflect a more equitable approach to our electives and expanding it specifically also at the high school. Next change comes on page 32. We altered the course description for the health grade 8. So it is a very explicit curriculum, which didn't really, the old verbiage didn't really talk about what is in the current board policy. And so we made those corrections in order to relay the most recent information. As well as, so since we're offering the half credit for health in grade 8, it would only make sense that we offered the other half credit requirement, which is the physical education. That way they're not coming to high school with a half credit down, and then it becomes like a scheduling kind of thing where you're trying to schedule in that half credit requirement that they need, and it's just more challenging because we don't have a lot of half credit options in our catalog. So it would make sense to make that into a streamlined one-year course, semester 1, semester 2, health PE, so that they come to high school prepared already with those credits.
So the change here in the future, you're going to opt for health, your year course is PE. You have your health PE credit done in the middle school going to high school.
Once again, opening more electives.
We have, I think there's like one section of health in the middle school. Going by memory.
So should that say 1 credit hour then on the heading change instead of still saying 0.5?
It's 0.5, and then physical education would be the other 0.5, so it would be a combination of a 1 credit course.
Could you kind of elaborate on this sexual health topic?
Sure.
Is that what we're still working with right now? I know that we're trying to create that curriculum. Is that what?
Right. So right now, as our current board policy stands, we teach the HIV and AIDS per the law, and we are still abstinence only with our current approved curriculum and the board policy. And that is reflected with the current change that we made to this section.
So I will say this, we're going to move forward here. We will be surveying for a conversation we have. We just held off sending that survey out because of the things that are going on west. It wasn't appropriate this time. But we have a draft survey that we are sending out. And to have that conversation, if we want to remain in that space. So that is still absence based curriculum.
The next, oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, you're welcome. The next few changes going into page, I think that's it for middle school. Did you have any questions? I'm sorry.
Education for Ms. Morella on the courses and students coming in the middle of the year.
It's been great.
Hours going over.
Really and truly though, because you, coming from the elementary world, you have no idea how intricate course scheduling is, because really we just have specialist classes to try and figure out those logistics. But this is really fascinating because it's really like a big puzzle, and it's, learning the process has been great.
And having everyone communicating and doing this has been actually a really lot of fun this year too. So.
Yeah, it really has. So.
Yeah.
Well, the idea, right, is making the middle school and high school
Yeah.
merge together,
Yes.
so as our kids
That's
are
right.
growing, it's flowing into the building.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
All right. All right. The next few pages are just changes that Mr. Walmsley had already addressed, talking about the changes from a 6-period day at the high school to a 7-period day. Sure. No.
If you look at this
Yeah.
chart under personal finance, the current 7th graders who are going
Go-
to be
eighth,
8th graders
yep.
next year, they have a graduation requirement to have a half credit of personal finance. So you're going to see on this chart, class of 2028 and beyond, there's a half credit of personal finance. There is no direction yet, no
From the
guidance
state.
from the state. We have some of our ideas that
Yeah.
we're throwing around and where that would fit, and the half credit matching up.
Where would it match?
So that will be coming, but I just want to point out on there, that's why you see 0 for class of 24, 25, 26, and 27, and then it shows up in the class of 20.
You'll also see it reflected in the math course selection, because we have already begun that change by combining semester 1 and semester 2 of personal finance into that one streamlined semester course. So whatever does go into play next year, we are ready for those 8th graders with those changes that you would approve. All right. On page 51, we are changing, it's essentially the name, but independent art is going to change to the advanced studio art, once again in consultation with the middle school and high school art teachers. This is just the best streamlined way for our fine arts students.
And this is intended to be that student who's in the art path.
The art
Who
pathway.
really wants to take this to the next level, to be in a studio art
Mhm.
It's not just someone, hey, I think I like art, can I go to United States?
Yeah.
That's-
No.
This is that higher institute.
Right. Any questions so far? Okay. CTE course descriptions, we have quite a bit of changes. We're going to streamline accounting 1 and 2 into just one course, accounting 1, because with consultation with Ms. Zabo and the county, accounting 2 really isn't necessary. So we want to streamline the courses so that we get those students as completers, and they're able to take other courses as well. We are going to add in our course catalog AIS 2 and 3. We already offer it, but we're just formally outlining that you can take multiple years of heavy equipment. It's just a formality in the course handbook here. On page 56, added to all CTE courses that any cost for a credential that Ms. Zabo had talked about as we're moving from segments to competencies, one of those requirements is offering some kind of a credential so that kids post-secondary leave with some kind of certificate if they obtain it for their career path. So you'll see that all those costs will be covered by the district of any credential offered in the course. Mm-hmm. Very. We are going to omit business management technology 2 because it is more appropriate that really our marketing 2 are the students that are running that student store, not necessarily BMT 2. BMT can be the completer in 1 year. Marketing 2 would be the kids that then run the student store.
So you're basically cleaning stuff up, stuff that is sitting there.
Perfect. Yeah, so when every year we have to submit our instructional design to the state of Michigan, and the way the courses were previously set up, going back to the segments and competencies, there's 12 segments. So a class such as accounting, the way it was set up is that we had segments 1 through 6 in the first year and 7 through 12 in the second year. So we were missing out on a ton of funding from the state because if you remember my chart I showed, students have to complete at 8 segments to get to that higher tier level of funding. And so when we're looking at our numbers, for example, we had 200 some odd enrollments in CTE last year. According to the state, we only technically had 53 students that completed a class because of the way those segments were set up. And so what we're able to do is that talking with the teacher, talking at the county level, there is no reason why we wouldn't be able to cover all 12 of those segments in 1 year of accounting and then be able to capture all of the funding for those students. And so really it's about whether cleaning up and just really looking at, are we providing the appropriate structure and instructional design to our students? And so when we, not to jump ahead, but marketing is kind of tied in there. Marketing will be the only class that does, in the business pathway, that does have a second year course. And what those students will become is what the state considers a Z student. And basically, they will be able to individualize their instruction in their CTE course. And so a student that would be marketing, you might be interested in sports marketing, which looks totally different than someone that's going to be looking at marketing of a restaurant, or looking at the financial aspect of marketing if they also took accounting. So those Z students will have individualized, basically, curriculum established by our business teacher that they'll be able to focus their instruction on a career pathway that they're interested in. And so that will be accomplished through that class. And then the other pathways, the BMT and the accounting, they'll be able to hit all of their competencies in 1 year.
And we'll be able to capture more of those funding and its appropriate instructional model. Page 59, this talks about our brand new esports and master coding pathway. So like I said, talking about a streamlined pathway for students. Esports master coding would be the second course in that line. Advanced placement, AP computer science principles, always a fun thing when we can add more advanced placement, college level courses for students to take. And we certainly, after looking at some of these students, they're certainly ready for college level courses, way more than I am. So. That's right.
Our students a couple of years ago would go there.
Right.
We don't need to do that anymore. We offer it right here.
So I know that you were piloting the esports
Mhm.
for this class.
Mhm.
Are we opening this up now as a full-on, anyone can?
So we-
I know before you had a certain
Mhm.
demographic, if you will.
Yeah, we are testing it out right now on the computer science video game development course. Ms. Campo has been working with kids and forming our own esports team, so that is already happening. So like Micah is actually our Discord channel like a supervisor, like it's a whole thing, so yeah.
So it's going to be opened up for more than just.
Oh yes, absolutely. It was a small launch because you really have to be systematic. You can't have a giant team to start off. It's not manageable because everybody has to have consoles and games and registration fees and playing other teams across the state, and it's a lot to manage. So starting out small so far, we've seen great success so far with the students. Even so that we're going to be able to create its own course to be able to master all of those master coding standards.
And one of the requirements of CTE is that there has to be a pathway. And so what you'll notice is that the current computer programming and video game development class is open for students 9 through 12. And then as they progress, the esports and master coding would be 10, 11, and 12, and then leading that pathway into that AP computer science principles class 11 and 12, because that is one of the requirements. And so we want to make sure, again, with a lot of our classes, that that would be that pathway that the students would follow.
And all of our AP courses, not just in this one in CTE, is open to 11th and 12th graders, so it streamlines right along with our current programming. Okay. The next changes, drastic changes we have is on page 64, where we are removing cybersecurity. When we have 2 years of not running a particular CTE program, we lose what is called the SIP code for that course. And honestly, after consultation with Ms. Williams last year, before Ms. Zabo came on board, as well as just my nerdiness, I don't know. But knowing about computer science and all of this, really cybersecurity is not quite the direction. Computer programming is the direction that we definitely want to go in. So yeah.
And I feel like that would actually lead into if we were already in.
Absolutely.
And really into that, if this is something that you want
Yeah.
to go to.
And I'm really glad you brought that up because under that safety competency, under the A strands, is your cybersecurity, your online safety, all of those things that you wouldn't even think about, those safety things online for computers, that's exactly where those fall into. So they are getting it as well. It's not like we just don't teach it.
And we will, coming up when we get to the I's, under internship, be able to talk a little bit about a student, if they were interested in going deeper into one specific area within a pathway, how they would be able to do that.
So the next change, page 66, that is our exciting theater class. Creating a fine arts pathway here at CTE. So, like I said, it's going to encompass regular theater art, performing art, as well as technical theater. The next one is on page 67, TV Broadcast Media 2. It's a formality in the handbook. We already offer it, but just formalizing that you can take multiple years and kind of capturing those students again. So proud of page 68. There is a lot of red here, which is great because we are no longer sending students to a different district. We proudly offer these programs here at Richmond.
Remember a couple of years ago, we reset this, but this is
And like I said, we did a student survey, and one of the highest ones was the computer science, as well as teacher cadet, which, warms my heart. But, if you give the opportunity to students to speak, they'll tell you exactly what they need, and they told us what they needed, and we all came through. So, page 70, a lot of changes here to the English courses. You'll see a lot of the stars and things. With going to a 7-period day, we needed to open up our offerings for English. You'll see that we're omitting odd years, even years, in hopes that we will be able to capture more students that would like to take an elective, and then open it up for grade 10 as well. A lot of these electives were for 11th and 12th graders, but you'll see with a 7-period day, it kind of allows that freedom. So we're going to be offering more ELA courses, electives for students. Going right along. All right. Page 77. This whole thing needed some work. So as you know from that pager that I gave you, especially looking at the backup documentation where you see in grade 6, we do this great thing called the geometry wheel. Students take a quarter, and it's 2 quarters, well, it's quarters all the way through, but of extra geometry because literally 6th grade has the most math standards out of any K-12. It works really well. It's kind of like that elective. So we're keeping that. It is successful. Grade 7 is where we're going to see the change, where currently we have an introduction to grade 7 math in place, where students do not get remediation in these courses, and that's important because research tells us that remediation it doesn't have the same effect size as a pre-teaching model, front-loading students with the necessary skills that they need in math in order to be successful for what the core is teaching them. So when we look at how we have an intro course in grade 7, we have an intro course in grade 8, currently in the high school we don't have a support model in mathematics, which is one contributing factor to our scores. This intervention and support page, we are going to add Algebra 1 support, Geometry support, Algebra 2 support, so that it would be a pre-teaching model and ideally by the same teacher in a block class where they're going to get those pre-skills necessary to be successful in that Michigan merit curriculum.
So in essence here, they would take Algebra 1 support.
And Algebra 1.
At the same time. So and then if I still need support going into geometry, I would have geometry support and geometry. If I still need support when I hit the 3rd year, Algebra 2 support, Algebra 2. For some kids, the algebraic concept of stuff.
It was geometry for me.
Algebra 1 support and algebra my 9th year, but I moved in just to geometry in the 10th year. You know, it depends on the content. Some kids might need more support, some might need no support.
And how do you determine what kids need to take the support by their previous?
So we need to create, so there needs to be multiple data pieces that we're looking. We know that some of these high stakes tests, you know, let's say Olympic day, and you might have a bad day. And so it's really important for us as a instructional team involving the school counselor, the principal, myself, having those conversation in order to outline what are some of the parameters that would qualify a student for this particular pathway and support given. And ultimately, you know, it's a recommendation for them to get the support that they need. But we need to put something in place. Now, it's hard to say one number because if you're looking at multiple sets of data, maybe MSTEP, NWA, and you're looking at formative assessments from the teacher, you know, that all of that combined should give you a very good picture of what specific supports that those kids need.
This model, they tweaked and refined with the Type 1 program. Well, I moved up so she could see what was listed.
Oh, thank you.
It really, it hasn't locked kids in. They've gotten what they need to support and need them. That's the intent here. Bring everybody who's got a piece of the data to the table and figure, okay, what's the best program to have for those students?
And it also is, you know, having those conversations with families. You know, we can only say this so much. It's still a recommendation, and just having those conversations as to what's going to be the best for the student. And I also want to say that this pathway, the Goldilocks, right? Just because you are in Algebra 1 support in Algebra 1, 9th grade, doesn't mean that you can't go to a traditional pathway or your on-track pathway, if you will, for geometry. That's called tracking, and that is not good. So I want to be very clear that if you are in any path, you are able to go to a different path depending on what you're able to show us you can do. It's all back, that onus is back on the students. So we're not saying if you're in Algebra 1, that means this is your pathway forever. That is not true. If you might need help in Algebra 2. It's very appropriate for you to get Algebra 2 and Algebra 2 support. Likewise, you're in Algebra 2 support and Algebra 2 and you're doing really well, you get moved. So I just want to be clear. And Pathway 3, talking about the students that need to be challenged and advanced students, because we still have those students as well. Being able, they get into, let's just say, honors pre-calc, and they're going, I don't know what I was thinking about this, which very well might happen. They're able to go back into another math course or math-related course. So we're just giving students a lot more options in order to be successful. So does anybody have any questions about this page? And then, so we outline the pathway is just below our recommended. It's, they may move between pathways. It's very explicitly written. And then we outlined all of the math-related courses, because it is quite a bit, but it's still good stuff for kids to know, hey, what can I take for my 12th grade year?
Just a reminder for those who may not know, Algebra 1, Algebra, Geometry, and Algebra 2 are the core. In your senior year, you have to be in a math-related course. It could be a higher end math, but it could be
A CTE.
one of these other ones, like sports and master coding, the automotive technique,
Right.
et cetera. It just has to be a math-related course.
Yeah, the problem is in play when you do a 7th grade math, high school math, and 8th grade high school math, and then 9th grade you do math, and you don't do any math until you're a senior.
And you'll see that outlined in your backup documentation, as that is what our current pathway is. If you look at the new proposed pathway, they have more courses in between to help you get to that SAT level grade. That's right. Well, it's one of the issues. Like I said, once again, just that personal finance piece on page 84, where we've combined that into the half credit course in anticipation of that law taking effect next year for the 8th grade students. Page 87, speaking of our lovely fine arts, wouldn't it be great to provide students an opportunity that if they didn't like the instrument that they started off in middle school, that they had an opportunity to change instruments, or kids that didn't capture that in middle school and decide, this looks really fun, I want to play an instrument, that they have an opportunity. So that's what we're proposing for, once again, having the flexibility now with the 7-period day, being able to offer this beginning band to all students in high school.
And this came right from the
Mm-hmm.
There are students who maybe they come in their 11th grade year and want to learn an instrument. We have no place to put them currently.
The next one is being able to offer more offerings in changing Guitar 1 to a full year course, and same as Guitar 2. Once again, we're trying to open up those elective possibilities with the 7-period day. Next is science. Really, these changes on page 95 are really just, we wanted to, it reflects the change in scope and sequence that we made several years ago, and just making some adjustments now that we don't need class of 2022 or class of 2020 anymore, so those kind of updates now that we've kind of started streamlining those kids from that change several years ago. And with the new science scope, we took out honors physical science, since it's not a science requirement. None of our other science electives are honors, so that doesn't make sense for us to be there. We have a new course proposal on page 97, environmental science. Right now, a lot of our electives in science tend to be more technical. They're the anatomy, physiology, physics, forensics. And so adding a environmental science, which I think will be wonderful, and talking about that room you were just talking about, Mr. Walmsley, speaking of which, we happen to have a beautiful room. Okay. So you see a lot of changes to the courses. We wanted to kind of add more detail to a lot of our course descriptions. You can see from what it changed to here. Once again, this has all been in consultation with science, and that's 612. All science teachers had input in okaying the course descriptions. We've added more descriptions to some of our social studies courses as well as streamlined some of the courses that just didn't make sense. So, for example, page 104, the streamlined our social studies electives. Pre-World War II, we took out because it's covered in through World War I timeline. So, and they all like overlapped in time. We were like, wait.
And part of it is, it's a scheduling challenge.
Yeah.
When you have 4 offerings that are overlapping each other, and you get 5 weeks here, 8 okay, this is, it's through World War I.
Yeah.
And I think World War I and to present.
Yes.
If kids are interested in that, or students are interested, now we can have a better chance of that class running, because there'll be more students choosing that in the first go around in the schedule. Because oftentimes when we don't have enough, and say, okay, we're not going to run this board, we need to shuffle them. We're now getting kids in their second, third, fourth choices that may not be where they really want to be.
Next chunk of changes is around 108, 109. Once again, we're just trying to add more detail to our language course descriptions. And lastly, we cleaned up our internship pre-registration form. And if you want to discuss about the internship possibility with the Z's standards, it is on page 118.
So, internships through CTE programs, honestly, is new, is something that is new to me. But in consultation with Shannon Williams at the county level, one of the important things is making sure that the student is currently enrolled in a second year of that course. And so, for example, if a student were to do an internship, they would need to be taking the second kind of layer of that course. So I have some auto students who are interested in doing an internship. They're in currently Auto Tech 1, they would need to be enrolled in Auto Tech 2, and then next year they would be eligible for taking on an internship. There are two different types of internships. There's paid internships and there's non-paid internships, and depending on what route the student would take, that would be something that would be at the discretion of the individual or the business that was hosting the student. When looking at the pre-registration form that was previously in the course catalog, there was some kind of finality to it. It seemed like, hey, if you fill out this form, you're going to get this internship. But because of the CTE requirements, there are site-based visits that are required every 9 weeks that I would have to go out and do, make sure that OSHA regulations are being followed, making sure that there's not, child labor laws and, looking at time cards. They also have to come up with a plan of what skills they're going to be developed. So it's not just, hey, I'm going to go and get a job over at the dealership. It's every 9 weeks having us to sit down and talk about what competencies are you covering, what standards are you going to be learning, and then also there's a huge, I shouldn't say huge, but there's a burden on the employer too, because there's state regulated paperwork that they would need to fill out. So with this internship pre-registration form, we just want to gather some information from those students if they're interested in pursuing this, and then we're going to have to sit down and really talk about, to me, one of the most important pieces of what duties are you going to be doing at work, and why is this going to help meet your career goals? When students fill out their educational development plan every year, or EDP, if you're looking to go into marketing, then your internship probably shouldn't be doing something outside of that marketing or business pathway. And so really making sure students are formalizing, and it's okay if they change their mind at the end of this year, but we want to make, or at the end of the internship process, but we really want to make sure it aligns with what their post-secondary plans are. And so we just changed some of the components of this and are looking forward to hopefully offering this opportunity to some of our students and then businesses in town as well.
But as Andrea said, there's more than just, I want to do an internship.
Yeah.
We didn't want to lead students to leave that or fill it out.
I'm good, yeah. Hold up.
And yes, and because of a lot of the requirements, especially with the site visits, and then once a student's on a site, they're not allowed to go to a different site. And so sitting in some meetings where if a student hypothetically was in a construction trade CTE program, well, obviously construction changes sites. Well, every time that student would go to a different site, it would need to be certified from the CTE director. They have to go out. So there's just obviously a lot of legalities to that and making sure that we're in compliance with all those things. It's a little bit different than back when I was in school. They had just co-op, and you just got to have a job and get your paycheck, and then you got high school credit for it. Under the CTE realm, it does look different, and so we just want to make sure that we're in full compliance if we are going to offer it.
Do we already do internships though, like outside of CTE? Because we did in the past.
So currently, it is still currently in the course offering guide, but no one is currently in a formalized
After COVID, things,
internship.
obviously, we haven't really gotten back into that post-COVID because of everything, so.
Will that still gonna be there though, that other than?
Yeah, the internship is in the course catalog, so, and this is just, if we have a student that is at that level.
Right.
Now there's some things that we've got to put in place to make sure are in place so that they can still do the internship.
Are you talking about like a blanket internship if they were working somewhere else that we didn't offer CTE?
Yeah, like outside of CTE, there's
Yeah.
internships outside of CTE. Yeah, there are businesses looking, yeah, yeah.
This internship thing, would this be, if you have somebody that applied for this new founder thing, is this during school hours or is this a?
So it's one of those caveats of like a yes, no of, is it gonna be paid or unpaid, depending on how you answer that question. Can't think one of those yes, no kind of trees. We'll take you through the different process. But so it would be dependent on, again, what are the business's needs? What are the students' needs? And then obviously going to a 7-period day will help because we will have those offerings, but making sure as well, one of the biggest things is that the student has to be in that second year CTE class, and they also have to be in that class for 40 minutes a day. So hypothetically, if a student, not to use auto, keep using that example, but if they're over at the dealership, while it's a 2-hour block of class, they have to be in class 40 minutes. They can't use that 2-hour block of time to do any portion of their internship. They would have to make sure that at a minimum, 40 minutes would need to be in a seat doing classwork. But I also think that there's something to be said that they should be doing all of that classwork. And so those are some of the internal kind of checks and balances depending on the situation of the student that we would have to really sit down and investigate and really look at what that proposal looks like from the business, as well as us making sure that what the student's going there for is quality and,
Right.
meets those career goals.
This whole thing is totally new to me. I didn't go to a school that had even the co-op thing. The first time I ever heard of like AS, I was like, what the heck? Schools don't even go there. That's just weird. So my biggest question is, can I go back to high school? 'Cause
Isn't it fun? I know.
It is great, yeah. Well, and I think, and just from my personal experience, and I tried to make an effort of it, is that CTE programs aren't for one specific kid. And I think that when I was in high school, it was like, oh, you're going to a cosmetology class, or you're going to, leave. It had such a negative connotation for so long because college was the only right way to do things. And so I think that as we provide more opportunities to students in the building, going towards that 100% of, if your child wants to go to medical school, what better way to get into a medical school than to say that you're an EMT before you graduate high school, or you have first aid, or any of those things. And so I think that as we change that narrative amongst the district, amongst the building, pushing that down to the elementary, to the middle school, it really just will promote all of these programs, that it's not just for a student that doesn't want to go to college. There are huge benefits
Right.
for the college-going student that they can gain from these classes with their credentials. So.
Right, like our education pathway, they already have those college credits already, so they can skip right to a 3rd, 4th year education. And we know how we need teachers, so having those agreements in place really helps students even if they're going to college.
Does this have anything to do with the 13th-year program that we offer for, is that a whole separate night, a whole separate topic? Or would that be
So
something?
in this offering, our students have the ability to get a stay in Richmond, all their credits here. Our students have the ability, if they want to go to, in 8th grade, they can apply to go to the IAM, International Academy at Macomb. And we have 3 or 4 students that currently go there. They are Richmond
Eighth grade, you
students.
said?
They get notified in 8th grade, they start in 9th grade.
Okay.
We have students that may choose the early college Macomb, which is that 13th year.
Yeah.
Where they graduate Richmond, they go a 5th year, and at the end of that year, they graduate with an associate's degree 100% paid for, and now they can transfer that or wherever they want. So those are all options our high school kids have. We have, I believe, 13, What's that email that I sent?
Yeah.
13 who qualified to go to the Early College Macomb program for next year. So they are current 10th graders who tested and did all the stuff they need to do, and they are eligible. So we currently do not have a limit on it because it's another option for those students. This is the path they want. For
Would
some,
we ever be able to extend that to like St. Clair Community College, since some of our students actually live in St. Clair County?
we'd have to establish, much like, I believe, like Utica and, is it Anchor Bay? They have their own kind of thing.
For the dual enrollment, some of our students do choose to go to SC4 instead of, so the early college program is the 13th year. So their 11th and 12th grade year, they take half their classes here in the building and then they go to Macomb. That's a program specific to Macomb Community College. And then their 13th year, they're there full time. A dual enrollment student can take a minimum of even one class, and those classes are either at Macomb, or some students in that regard choose to go to SC4 for that. So that is an option. You can mix and match all of these. So we have kids that are dual enrollment and CTE students. We have students that are early college students that still take CTE. And so all of those options, everyone can really make their own unique combination of what meets their needs. But the SC4, we do have students that take their college classes through that college, yes.
So the 13th, as Andrew said, it's an agreement that the county made with Macomb Community College to create this program. Because there's counselors that are specific for the early college of Macomb that work with students to keep them on track and graduate, et cetera.
But they can get those credits out at SC4, and it's still
For the 13th year, no, that is through Macomb. If you want to do dual enrollment, you can go to SC4 and earn credits, college credits, as well as have that part of your.
You have to look at dual enrollment is old school, back many years ago, the way when you could get college credit, you could go to SC4 or Macomb. The early college of Macomb is a newfangled idea that Macomb College came up with, that a kid will have their associate's degree in that 5th year. Take those classes and go. So it's like an updated version of like when I was in high school, when you could take a class at that's what it is.
So SC4 doesn't offer that?
They have partnerships with St. Clair, districts that are in St. Clair County.
Right, through St. Clair County RESA.
Right. Think of it this way, and again, this is my political motivation. When the school aid fund began sending money to community colleges, early college programs began rising. So it's kind of the in that they had. You're still funneling money to a K-12 student, just you're paying for their 13th year.
And the early college program is more prescribed. So it's a very, I don't want to say regulated, but you take a specific set of courses amongst whatever associate's degree you're getting, whereas dual enrollment, the options are kind of endless as long as we're really not offering it here in the building. That's giving students the opportunity to explore, if they wanted to take German, because we don't offer German. Whereas if you look at an early college Macomb student, they're taking their economics, they're taking their civics, their government class, they're taking a political science class, communications. It's more of their core structure leading to that end goal of associates, whereas the dual enrollment, a lot of times students kind of like to pick and choose something that they're interested in, that they want to take at that higher level.
Gotcha. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about the course catalog proposal?
No, but Angela, if I could, I just would like to thank the three of you for the work that you put in and your staff, because it is a lot. And I apologize for the blood pressure elevation that I did with the virtual. But I just want to say, with the two of you, as a board member who's been around a very long time, it is both exciting and comforting to know that we have such passionate people about what you're doing and the CTE programs and what we're getting here for our kids. We got somebody, you obviously know what the heck you're talking about. It's apparent, and you're enthusiastic, and then working with this one who just comes up with things and everything is so great. It is just wonderful. wonderful.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm really excited to see all of these things inside the building. I know that my two children who have already graduated from here years ago are going to be jealous because they both would have loved to have done that kind of thing, but didn't want to leave the building so much.
Right.
You know, miss out on the high school,
Right.
you know what I mean, experience. So that's really awesome.
And also just, you know, remember to ask the teachers what they need and come and ask us to carry all this out, because I'm sure that their needs are higher than what they're getting. And just a reminder, ask us.
Thank you.
All right, next up, the benchmark assessment report.
Before Ms. Ayers pulling it up?
Oh, no, I'm just talking about it.
You have the three reports. This is a requirement of the law that we do. Staples has been doing this for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Actually, you're 4 weeks on the job. She presented this 2 years ago. So it is a requirement. So I'll turn it over.
Okay. Well, so like Mr. Walmsley just said, Section 98B talks about our goal and our progress report. It is a template. It's an optional template, but we choose to use it all in Macomb, outlining our goals. So our educational goals were established September 15th, and they you see the middle of the year reading goal, the middle of the year math goal, end of the year reading goal, and end of the year math goal. They are all the same. It's just the blatant that by the end of the 22-23 school year, each school and the district will show growth in reading, ELA, and math achievement throughout the global pandemic as measured on NWEA MAP growth for grades K-8 and NWA math growth and or local assessments for grade 9 through 12. So I know Ms. Michon would say, well, why do seniors have to take NWEA? And maybe that's a question you've asked yourself too. This law says that they have to test, and that's kind of why we had to make that adjustment to where NWEA had to be K-12, was to meet this goal, because we couldn't use local assessments. We had to use a growth monitoring tool in place to suffice the needs of this goal report. So today's presentation is just outlining the overall RIT scores of our initial fall data. I will then go into and it says, by no later than the last day of school, so the first presentation in June. I will then discuss the spring NWA data and talk about our overall growth that we've made per students and subpopulations. So like I said, it's just the initial. Here, just to kind of give you an idea of what you're looking at, kind of like what I was just saying about the FERPA, certain things you'll notice, like under English learner, for example, it might say NA. So that means that we have data, we have English learners in our district, however, the subgroup is less than 30, and it violates FERPA, confidentiality for me to discuss or to have any of these public documents about those students and with a subgroup less than 30. So you can actually see their overall RIT scores in math and reading, going all the way from students in special education, female students, male students, our subgroups, white, Hispanic, economically disadvantaged. Those are our main subpopulations. And it goes into each of the buildings. They are posted on our transparency page. And I will go into the overall RIT growth no later than the last day of school. Does anybody have any question about 98B?
So this was a result of a law that got passed during COVID. As some schools were open, some schools were virtual, and the varying degrees that took place, with the legislators' hope that we've got to be able to show parents progress. It was a one-size-fits-all law.
And honestly, with discussion with my data and assessment team at the county level, we don't see this going away anytime soon either. So, because it is an accountability piece from the state, so.
So we can say we are in compliance with 98.
There you go.
Perfect.
We have it.
Thank you.
I'm just going to stand up here.
Yes, you might as well. One last thing here for you. move on to our hashtag teach.
So you get JV with this one.
Last one here.
So as Mr. Thiel's pulling that up, we started this process about 2 months ago, maybe a little longer, trying to find, looking at other ways teachers can get certified because of the teacher shortage and what we were anticipating and projecting. This started with a conversation. One of our current teachers was in this program, Mr. Yost, and this was new to all of us. We did a lot of educating ourselves on this, and it has now expanded into several teachers, and looking at five that are interested in potential subs that are substitute teachers that have been in contact with us about would we support them with the idea that once they meet the certification, they would become our teachers. So we have, I believe, 5 now that are in some path of progress. So I will turn it over to the state.
So, Mr. Walmsley said we have a few teachers interested now. Essentially what this program is, it's an alternate pathway for people that currently have a bachelor's degree to earn their teaching certificate. It's an MDE approved program. Go to the first slide here. So part of the program that they offer, it's they break it down by hours, but it's equivalent to 15 to 33 college credit hours. And it focuses on like classroom management, instructional strategies. It's basically giving them the curriculum that teachers would get in a college setting. The advantage is it's a lot more cost effective for the teacher, but in this case the district would be paying for this for anyone interested as long as it's within the scope of what we're looking for. For example, like the science teacher, math teacher, special education, and foreign language, I think was the other area we were looking for.
What we specifically in Richmond need, is that what you're saying?
So that's what we're starting with first.
Okay.
And so as Mr. Thiel said, those that are in this program, we have a letter of commitment that we sign that commits them to 3 years into Richmond.
Okay.
And if they leave early, the intent is they pay the portion back of what, prorate it back. But we're willing to put this investment into the individual so that we have the individuals in the certification areas that we need. We also have the ability for current teachers to add additional certs which they're going to go over.
Yeah. Hashtag Teach also, it's based off a medical residency program to where they're in the classroom learning and taking these classes at their own pace online through Hashtag Teach. They are assigned an instructional coach through Hashtag Teach, and we would assign them a mentor as required by the Teacher Tenure Act. And that's for up to 5 years as a new teacher. As you can see, some of the benefits that it's outlined in this slide. It's more cost effective than our traditional college program. It covers all the 69 class hours above the MDE mandated minimum. Courses in restorative practices not offered by other programs, and ongoing support of cohort members 2 years beyond the initial year. That's in addition to the support that the district offers as well.
All right. So you can see for aspiring teachers that would like to become elementary certified, you can see in phase 1 and then in phase 2 some of the courses that they would have to take. It's important to note that ours is at their own pace, and it's not how many credits. So I know like we're used to looking at catalogs like how many credit hours is that? But it's actually just online hours at their own pace in all of these various topics. And this would be their scope and sequence essentially, starting from 1, their orientation, all the way to being able to do their methods of teaching and their content of elementary specialists.
This is the elementary classroom.
So if you think about it, in the traditional teaching model, the student-teacher model, these are topics that you're going to get covered in those courses. You're going to have maybe 1 or 2 classes in a credit course on developing lesson plans, or understanding diverse learners, or teaching style, understanding early childhood development, that middle child. And if you look at these topics, that's exactly what they're getting. They're getting the same content or similar content as someone who went through a traditional teacher education course.
Likewise, this is our secondary classroom scope. So once again, elementary certified would give you the K-5 certification. Your secondary is going to be your 6-12 certification. Once again, you even have, planning effective lessons, all the way to cooperative learning, which, is part of our Kagan structure and goals here, language acquisition and research. So there's a lot of great topics that you tend to learn in your methods class, but this is giving you explicit content that you're going to learn because you're also having students in front of you that you can actually, they say, when you go through school and then you actually go to your student teaching and it's like, put all your classes behind you because this is it now and this is what I'm doing, and I don't even know what that book was about, but I do know that this just worked and this worked. So it's nice that they're getting that lesson reiterated as they're being able to work with students along it. So it's not just this, okay, now I'm in front of kids. Wait, what did I just learn? So it's streamlined in a very nice way. For the K-12 certificate, that's really for your K-12 specialist, your media specialist, your K-12 positions that would require it to be certified in all buildings. And then, of course, brand new to #Teach is the special education K-12 pathway as well, which is, the assisted technology, how to conduct the IEP meetings. Once again, just one of those high need areas for sure.
A list of all the certification areas that they cover.
And it's important to know that the assessments for them to earn their credential are actually throughout the year. So they would just look online to see when they're offered and where. And just like, do you remember going to like SAT and you had to turn in your phone and you had to sign in, show your driver's license and do that? That's exactly what this is. And you take your certification test. You can add a credential if you already have one as a teacher, and you would just go to their testing locations throughout Michigan and look at the time that best suits for you, because a lot of these, a lot of people going through this program are working, they're their parents, so they're as accommodating as you could imagine.
So this just goes through the admission process for the program. Like I said, it's required to have a bachelor's degree or higher from an accredited university. Official transcripts need to be provided. Complete the application for #Teach. Your resume, and then they also require CPR first aid certification, background check, and then this kind of outlines the participant life cycle here. So the participant applies, they have to meet the requirements, they're admitted into the program. The fees are then paid by either us or the teacher. They begin their coursework, and then they become certified with passing CPR, background check, and their interim teaching certificate is applied through ODE, and then they start their 3-year program to this program completed.
And another great thing is when they complete this program, just as Jamie had mentioned, not only do they get a Richmond teacher, as per the law, mentor teacher to kind of help them with Power School, learning and grades, all of that fun stuff, but also Macomb County offers New Teacher Academy, which is, new teachers have to have additional 90 hours of professional development within 3 years. So they're still going to be obligated to that, but they can sign up to whichever class they want for 3 years. We take care of that cost, and it's New Teacher Academy over various topics, classroom instruction that works, classroom management, restorative practices, all of that is also something and a support for our brand new teachers that are going to go through this program too.
And the final step is that they can apply for their standard teaching cert at the end of this 3-year program.
So right now, we're paying for the teachers that we are in need of right now at Richmond.
So, exactly, what the process, anybody can do this.
Yeah.
Outside of school. What
Sure.
we've said is, if you want, we are willing to pay the fee for #Teach. And we're starting with the critical areas that we need, math, science, if there's someone who wants a world language, that's been a critical area for probably 10 years special ed. And so we will pay the fee to hashtag T, which is about $6,000 for the 3 years. So if they finish into 3 years, we've had that person now 3 years as a teacher. It's a great investment. If they leave after 1 year, then they would basically owe us the $4,000, prorated. What happens is if they show us an interest, yes, they want to have this partnership with us. We email hashtag teach and say, so-and-so, we are willing to pay the person. They email the participant directly. Here's the link, here's how to fill out the application. When you get to the part for payment, you put this code in, and that's a code so they know to bill the district. Once they have been approved through admissions, and they have passed the MTTC, they are issued from the state of Michigan an interim teaching certificate, which is a teaching certificate. It is a licensed teacher. They become a REA member. They're no longer a sub. They are now an REA member. And they have 3 years to finish all the coursework that they described to you. If at any time they withdraw from the program, hashtag Teach is obligated to notify the district that they have withdrawn from the program and their interim teaching certificate is revoked. If they complete they have 3 years to complete, they complete it sooner, but if they complete all the coursework, they actually get their standard teaching certificate, which is transferable to anywhere. They can go anywhere.
And in the meantime, the 3 years, they're working in our district teaching.
Our goal is to get them to pass that MTTC test.
They can take it in 2 weeks.
And
oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, take the test, they're certified.
Once they have that test and they passed it, and then they have the CPR, as Jamie said, and they are admitted to this program, they are a certified teacher.
So it's a 3-year program, but it could take a whole lot less.
If you really,
if you were to put in 6 hours, 12 hours, whatever, dedicate weekends, they can knock it out really quick. Yep. It's at their own pace, which is personalized to them.
So what about now, and you said that there were some teachers that were interested in like being certified in something different?
We held a Zoom meeting, was it 2 weeks ago? What's the last 2? It feels like a long time ago. To at least have some information. From that meeting, we have had individual, particularly substitutes, reach out to us and say, okay, would you be interested in paying for this if I went for this endorsement? So what we're doing, what is it that we absolutely need now? That's our first priority. And then second is, as we're looking at this course catalog and potential future courses, looking at what is the potential of other endorsements that we're going to need. Like for instance, is it KH, the old home ec class? It includes health, and health is always a cert that there's very limited
like a
people
life skills?
It's a life skill, thank you. So when we look at that, is right now we have some students that are placed in the culinary, who may not be wanting to go into culinary, but they may want to go into some type of life skills course. So we have the ability with someone with that cert to pick them up and be able to offer courses to them. Health is another one. There's only a handful of people that are currently certified.
Like 2, I think you said, yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is my goal is when we issue the schedule, we're giving teachers the courses they want to teach, and not the courses that, I have the certification and so I'm going to give it to you. Does it happen all the time? No. There are courses that teachers get assigned, however you want to say it, that may not be their passion. So we're looking at, and so we've opened it up if we have current teachers who want to look at other certs. We've had teachers express interest in wanting to get a counselor cert. A counselor cert doesn't fall under this, so it can't run it through hashtag Teach.
So is it, if I'm just an outside person interested, can I go through hashtag Teach and they tell me Richmond is looking for something, or do I have to come to Richmond because Richmond is doing it?
You can go to anybody can go to hashtag Teach.
And it'll say Richmond needs this?
They will show, they have a part on their website, I think it's actually once you get the email from what districts they've partnered with.
Okay.
Where we have been focusing, sorry about that, is you're interested, what are you interested in? You interested in going to get your master? We need master
Right.
or science. All right, if you're willing to do it, we will partner.
Right, and we're focusing on people that we already have, our subject, which is
Exactly, and that's a
exciting.
huge-
But I'm saying, what if there's someone out there, I would have the ability to look on, and if Richmond is looking for math cert, that's what I want to do, I can approach.
Website, I think, and then I put it out there, Red Rover, to all the subs.
Okay.
That's where a lot of the responses are
And
coming.
we have an
Okay.
internal process to see if this is a good fit. It's not
Okay.
just Richmond Free Scholarship. We have an internal
Oh, yeah,
process to
right,
make
right.
sure that
Okay.
this is the right candidate. They're filling a high needs area for us.
Okay.
And that, you know, we're looking at longevity, all of those kind of things, but we do have our own process too.
Okay.
So like, for instance, if I had just someone through Red Rover say, hey, well, I want to get my elementary cert, I would really scrutinize that, because right now elementary is still
I would say it's still a pretty common
we get a number of of people who apply. However, if I have someone in our district that has, maybe it's a substitute, or it's a teacher who wants to get their elementary cert, and they're willing, I'm definitely looking at that, because it provides more. We already know that person, we know the type of person they are, they know the type of teacher they are. And it might be something that we want to invest in them, because, I can look at seniority lists and I can speculate, well, I think in a year I may have 2 retirements, or in 4 years I may have 3 retirements. Well, if I can get this person certified in 3 years and they're committed here, it might be so it's being very strategic on what our needs are, but also looking at the future needs. Like I said, we have one substitute who's looking at a different cert that we don't currently have someone in, that would open up some other coursework that we can utilize.
Are there many districts doing this as well?
Hashtag Teach is primarily in 4, there's several districts that are they're looking at alternate programs. A lot of your colleges are partnering with districts, like Wayne State is pushing but you have to go to still a lot of sites, and that is for someone who may have a family at home, and a lot of that may prohibit them from going into the teaching right now. This is, I think, the best, most flexible option, I'll put it that way, for individuals who are interested. And you can get it done in 3 years, or if you really put your nose to the grind, you can get it done in a semester probably. If you're that type of person who spends nights and weekends going through the coursework.
Right. That's not. It's exciting.
I'm excited because it gives us another option as we're looking at areas that we are struggling with.
Yeah, for sure.
I look at it, we've been pretty successful so far. We can only get better at it.
I do have to collect these back from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, got all 3. Okay, next up, we have Rashad here to just go over our FY 2023 budget amendment number 1.
Thank you. Now, this is the real fun stuff.
Yes.
I will start with this. We will be coming back to you probably in April with another amendment, because there are several grants that have come in, like a lot of the Section 97, which is the school safety, and some of the others that are in the unknown at this point in terms of details. So we'll be coming back to you again with one more amendment before the end of the year. But this budget that we're going to present to you still has revenues exceeding expenditures. And that's the point that we've been trying to maintain, despite all the ups and downs that we've had this year. And as Mrs. Shad goes through, even though there's a position that might be vacated right now, the money is still budgeted in that position as soon as we have the person to fill it. So we haven't withdrawn anything out of the budget because someone has left. So I want to make sure so I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So back on June 27th of 2022, when we did the original approval of this budget, we had a lot of unknowns, and we made assumptions for probably just about everything. Now we know our per pupil foundation, we know our enrollment, We know most of our grants, although as Brian said, we have some new ones, but our title grants are known, our IDEA funding is now known, 31A is known, and GSRP is all set. So I'll start with revenues, that's the top section.
Can I interrupt? For new board members, if we're using an acronym, just shout out, ask questions throughout it, or even existing board members, because sometimes we use acronyms that we don't always know.
Yeah, we use them every day, so I apologize. Please ask, yes. Okay, so local revenues is primarily based on our property taxes. We did adjust that for changes in taxable values. State revenues, you'll notice there was a change of about 1.2 million of an increase, and that's primarily because, well, first of all, we had a $150 increase in the foundation. That brings in another $230,000. We had an increase of 43 students in our enrollment, which brings in just under $400,000, about $396,000. We had an increase in UAAL funding, which is the unfunded accrued actuarial liability towards our retirement, the state of Michigan retirement, where they pass us the money and then we send it off to the retirement system. So that will bring in revenue of about $135,000. We had an increase in our 31A funding of about $122,000. And we had a couple changes in our GSRP. First of all, we went from 3 GSRP classrooms to 4. We also received additional funding per student under GSRP, which is like the $150 that we received under our base foundation. And we also had a federal grant last year for GSRP that covered our new 3rd classroom that we added a year ago. Now that money is now shifted to state funding because the federal funding went away. So that brings us to an increase, but we also had one reduction, which was in our CTE funding, where our funding awarded to us by the state actually went up a little bit, but because we didn't spend all our funding last year, we have to return some to the state. That's about $66,000. And that's part of what Andrea and Renee and Brian have been working on. Under federal sources, we decreased about $1 million. Part of that was our decrease in our IDEA funding. The Macomb ISD determines that funding based on a formula. They had a formula a few years ago that in an audit in another district, another county, they couldn't keep that formula. So we have a new funding formula which decreased our revenue about $200,000. We had ARP revenue, which was the American Rescue Plan IDEA funding, that also decreased, that went away. That's about $64,000. We had decreases in our Title I and Title II funding, which is about $170,000 for Title I and about $56,000 for Title II. Then we also had funding under ESSER I and ESSER II. That once those monies are spent, that funding went away as well. So that decreased our revenue about $83,000 for ESSER I and about $339,000 for ESSER II. And the last thing was about a decrease of $100,000 because that federal GSRP funding was reclassified into the state funding. Under inter-district sources, because of that change in the IDEA funding formula, Macomb ISD is holding us harmless for the 2nd year. Last year they gave us additional funding in the form of higher IDEA. This year the IDEA went down, but they're giving us a portion of the MISD special ed millage, and that's about $240,000 that's being added to the inter-district sources. So our general fund revenues under the original budget were $21,085,000 and are up to $21,510,000 under the amended budget. That's quick. Any questions on revenues?
I just want to stress again, when we build the budget, as Tammy said, for next year, FY24, $200,000 in IDA were being held harmless this year. That goes away. So we will have $200,000 in less revenue last year because of this formula that they redid. They held us harmless last year. They used the special ed millage this year. That doesn't exist next year. So we will have that less. So.
Moving on to expenditures. Our first start with basic programs under elementary. We had some movement of shifting staff in the elementary school, so that modified our salaries and benefits. And then under capital outlay, you'll see there was a decrease, a significant decrease, and that was because when ESSER 2 revenue goes away, the ESSER 2 expenditures go away. So here's one of the lines. There are lines throughout as I go through this that you'll see capital outlay declining, but that's the ESSER 2 funding that we had is gone, so the expenditures are gone. Under
Remember,
middle,
when we bought laptops with that
Yes.
ESSER 2 funding?
laptops,
That goes away.
desktops. And we also, under middle school, we had a change in retirement. Again, that's a staffing change. That's because the state of Michigan has 8 different programs for the retirement system. And the newer programs that new staff or people who have not been employed in the district can choose are sometimes more expensive than what we are offered for people who've been in the district a while. Does that make sense? So part of the increase in retirement benefits under the middle school is just a change in staffing where we have new staff who are falling under a higher retirement rate than the staff who we have left. Does that make sense? Then we also have a decrease in supplies and a decrease in capital outlay expenditures. Under supplies, that were science textbooks funded by ESSER 2 and desktops and laptops purchased with ESSER 2 funds. Going down to page 2. We have our high school. Again, we increased our high school salaries and benefits. We added basically 2 FTEs at the high school, 2 full-time equivalent teaching positions at the high school. And then we also see a reduction under capital outlay for the ESSER 2 expenditures for desktops and laptops. Under preschool, as I mentioned, we added a 4th classroom, so that increased our salaries and our benefits. Under health, you'll notice that was pretty small. But as additional staff are coming in, they have, under the Affordable Care Act, they work over 30 hours, they can elect health insurance, so more of them are now electing health insurance. And then under supplies, we have to fund the classrooms, and so the 4th classroom, we have added supply costs, as well as increased our food costs to all of the classrooms for GSRP. Part of GSRP is offering snacks and meals, and this is it's under a supply under the preschool budget. Summer school didn't change a whole lot with new grants that, as Brian mentioned, we have new grants that were awarded. So when we get those budgeted out, some of the other grants may be impacted, which will give us money to put under preschool or under summer school. That gets us to basic programs, a total of $9.7 million to start, and it's still $9.7 million down about $50,000. Any questions on basic programs? And I'll go to page 3, which is our special education. Starts with added needs, starts with special education. We had some staffing changes and shifts in special education, which reduced that budget from $1,021,000 to $984,000. Under Title I and at-risk, these are positions funded for people who are getting additional help in their classwork. Salaries decrease, and again, that was staffing changes and budget changes. Under vocational ed, which is where our career and technical education expenditures are recorded, you'll see an increase there that's significant because we have new programs for teaching. We added 2 teaching positions or part of teaching positions for the teacher cadet and the computer programming class. When you go down to purchase services, that increased because we added a contract for the teacher who teaches the automotive technology program. And then we also purchased new software licenses for the accounting, business, and marketing programs. And then you can see under capital outlay, there's an increase, and that covers just the new classes that we have, the increased grant funding, and the current class and the class that we offered in the past. You can buy additional equipment or replace equipment under using those CTE funds.
And Andrea mentioned about that $40,000 bringing EMT program back here, that mannequin, that's where it's at. That's part of that increases in that capital.
Exactly.
And that ambulance?
It's all, well, they're decommissioning the ambulance because they got a new one.
Yeah.
So we're going to work on wrapping it with the Blue Devil and any of those costs would fall right in there.
Okay.
And we're using those, the CT.
But it's not in there right now. That ambulance isn't in there now.
What's in there right now is the CT funds that we know we're going to get and how we're allocating them. think they're wrapping I think it's about $8,000 they're estimating the expense to do it, wrapping it and up into the materials for the ambulance outside of what's in there currently.
And we tried to, Andrea went through and sent over a budget. We met and talked about it, trying to get all of our CTE money used. And so this is what the increase here from $399,000 to $610,000 is accomplishing.
You will not be sending money back with Andrea as the CTE director, I will tell you that.
That makes me sick.
She will.
We send money
The
back.
change came partway through the year last year, and it was about halfway through the year that we were notified that we were getting that increase, and we just did not have the time or the people to make that happen.
We got it. We're on it right now.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
And that brings it on the bottom of page 3, the total instructional expenditures just goes up a little bit from $11,771,000 to $11,791,000. Any questions on anything so far? Okay, we'll continue to page 4, guidance services. One of the things we've done under guidance services is for the counselors, we funded them partially out of ESSER 3 and partially out of the general fund. Last year, it was a 50-50 split between the two funding sources. This year, we've decreased the ESSER 3 funding to 25% and increased the general fund to 75%. The plan is for next year to just have it all general fund.
So again, as those ESSER funds are going away, we're moving that expense back to general so we can maintain it. So you will not be in a position that the funds have gone away, we've got a position that we've got to get rid of. That's not the intent.
Also under guidance, we added 1.5 new FTEs, funded from 31A and ESSER 3 as a student advocate position, and then we added a third counselor for the district for the second semester.
So you saw that the person you hired tonight is able to be our counselor, so we're bringing her on board. She's phenomenal. She's absolutely wonderful.
Exciting.
Under the next section, it's a one-line health services line. It's $3,000 in purchase services. It hasn't changed. This is the cost where we pay to CARE of Southeastern Michigan for the student assistance services that they need. This is the anonymous services if parents or students need them. All we know is we get a bill and we pay them for that service.
And just to let you know that I got the January one, and there were 3 families that utilized that service in January. So I can't say it was related to everything that went on, but we had families utilizing that service. So.
That's available to teachers and staff too, though, right? Okay.
It's in a different area of the budget.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Under speech and audiology services, the biggest change there is in 21-22, we had a staff person on leave, but we still had to provide speech services, so we had to contract to bring in a company to do that. So we reduced the budget. We haven't had to do that this year. We don't see that that's happening, so we reduced that budget accordingly. Going to page 5. Under social work, at-risk services, there were staffing changes and shifts there under social worker. One left, one came on. So that increased their salaries and benefits. Under teacher consultant services, again, staffing shifts has modified that number. We have less TC time, more in the classroom. Under other public services, Schedule B, other pupil services, sorry. Under salaries and benefits, you'll notice that there was a decline. What we had in the past was the elementary tech position also took care of the high school auditorium. We classified that person under this section for caring for the extracurricular high school auditorium. That really is not the case any longer. We now have a third person who really does technology at the elementary, so we've shifted that to another location in the budget under the technology function. So it brings our total support services on the bottom of that page just up a little bit, $1,536,000 to $1,568,000. Any questions on pupil support services?
Supplies, could you just give me an example? I mean, is that just per teacher or per, I mean?
Is that, are you going to other pupil support services?
This one right here?
The per pupil one.
That is supplies that are used in like the robotics program. We supplies, we don't have a lot of supplies for the extracurricular, but that's primarily robotics. And that's funded by a grant. And there are different levels at the elementary. high school, middle school, there's, each building has a portion of the grant and they get supplies for that.
I believe in that supply, and there's a line, there's an account for the, this where the theater program is also, so prep sets, they have a supply budget for sets, the costumes, or the, what's that, the manuscript, the playbooks, or the, I'm drawing a blank. Scripts, thank you. That would fall under there, but a good chunk of that, as Tammy said, is the robotics grant, where it's in the revenue on the state part at the beginning, and the expense is here. We have not been notified of our robotics grant.
Correct.
As of today.
The application was submitted, but we haven't been notified.
So what that number is what we were approved last year for.
So is that all Schedule Bs?
That's all academic Schedule Bs. The athletic Schedule Bs are going to be later on in the budget.
Oh, okay. I'll ask my questions at
The
the
state
end.
set me to set up our chart of accounts by function. So when I say elementary, that includes the elementary teaching staff, cost of the staff. It also includes supplies, it includes any software they need to use, that type of thing.
Lunch aids are falling under the elementary group.
And when you get to the middle school, it's a whole new set of accounts for just the middle school. So as we go through that, you'll see supply lines throughout, and it's by function. So whatever they're doing, so if I'm a middle school teacher, I'm teaching in the classroom, I have a supply under the middle school line. When we get to counselors, they have supplies, but it's under the counseling section. And it can be supplies for the middle school counselor, high school counselor.
In that purchase service, that's where the copier maintenance. So when a teacher comes up and swipes their badge and they are in elementary, that charge is charged towards elementary. It's just mine, it's charged under my account or my section of the budget. This is a summary. The other document you have, the thick one, is all the ASNs. So you can actually see all the supplies broken out under each one of these functions.
And you'll see, if you look at that, if you go to the elementary, which is a function 111, it will show you there's a supply line for kindergarten, supply line for first grade, second grade, third grade, and then there's some supplies for phys ed, for music.
A general one for the building.
Throughout for each building. This is a summary to take all those supplies and put them together in each function.
And that's based off of the teachers coming to us assessing how much they think they might need.
The supplies are budgeted based on what's been spent in the past, and if things have come up that we need to increase it, or conversations that we've had with teachers saying, okay, I want to do this, but there's not dollars. We have adjusted supplies, which is in there. There are oftentimes supplies that are budgeted that do not get expensed for whatever reason by a staff person at the end of the year. There's some, maybe they're 3/4 of it are expended. So we look at what are they spending to adjust the budget. In this particular one, your salaries are all your National Honor Society, your spelling bees, your robotics stipends. It's all of the academic clubs.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
And when you look at the accounts, I say this every time, it is very overwhelming. There's hundred and some odd pages. If you have any question on anything, call us. We will sit down with you and go over any. It is a lot.
When I look at those reports, I pull out the rulers, so we can do a ruler night. We can go give you a ruler, I'll have a ruler, and we can go through them. Okay, moving to page 6, we're under improvement of instruction. That's primarily Title II grant funding. We shift around how we use that funding, so you'll see a change in salaries, you'll see a change in purchase services, change in supplies. It just depends on what we write the grant to include.
And just remember, when you approve the budget in June, we have no idea oftentimes what our title fund is, so we just take whatever we finished last year and we put it in the June budget and roll it over. It's this time period that we clean it up.
Once we know that the grants have been approved, we have to plan how we're spending. Under library, in the middle section of that page, one item I'd like to point out is supplies. You'll see that increased by about $15,000. We added money to each building's budget so they can buy the library books.
We did not have a structural replenishment of library books. So that's one that we just, working with Mrs. Jackson, we just added about 5,000 at the middle school. We need to do this for organizations. We got it. So our copyright date of our books are older than what they should be.
In the technology section, which is the bottom of that page, you can see salaries increase. This is where I talked about shifting that elementary tech person into the technology budget. This is where that shows up with these increases. We had a decrease under the Schedule B stuff. Now we have a decrease under technology. The bottom line there is also capital outlay decrease. Again, that is for desktops and laptops funded under ESSER 2. On page 7, we start with supervision of instructional staff. That's really Renee's position as curriculum. All the other things she does, special ed position is in there. A portion of our dean of students who runs the GSRP program, part of that. Salary and benefits are in there. Didn't change a lot. Purchase services changed because we have to, for our 4th GSRP classroom, had to increase the cost of services to those GSRP students. Supplies increase because we have need for supplies for the office, for professional development, those types of things. Under academic student assessment, it's one line for other expenses. That's primarily software licenses. We have NWEA, the K-12 math growth software in there. We have Title I Ames web software, and under Title IV, the Education Galaxy software. Under Board of Education, purchase services, we increased the audit costs, and we also added money for board members to attend workshops.
So there, in this case, you'll see a $5,000 line item for professional development for the board.
So that's where the conference that was when, I know it wasn't 5,000, but you have that now as a built-in.
It's lumped under purchase services here under that lengthy 180-page document. There's a line called workshops and conferences under the board function for 5,000. Under executive administration, you'll notice salaries and benefits decreased. We shifted the position when the pupil accounting position separate position and we hired someone new. The job changed, so it was more appropriate to move that to a separate pupil accounting function. So that was moved. Only the person who year to date when they left is here, along with the superintendent, and then it shifted to the pupil accounting position. So I'll point it out when we get there. Any questions so far?
Can I ask what the Board of Education, what that previously was? What did we use that for? I know there was a...
It includes legal, it includes memberships that the board has, and workshops, conferences, those types of things. There's some marketing in there as well.
Is the audit in this
Audit
one?
is in that
The
one.
cost of the audit to do it falls under the board, it's an obligation of the board to audit, so it falls under there and that cost.
Any other questions?
The order that Tammy's going through is also the order in that the account number. So as you're going side by side, like I said, when you get to this 231, you'll see function 231, and you can actually see the breakdown of all of these in total to these dollars.
And it is a lot to go through, so I really do get down to the detail.
You went over it once with me, but I'm just refreshing.
The next one, on page 8, is Office of the Principal. The one change there I'd like to point out is because of staffing changes, our insurance went down. When we bring in staff, they elect insurance or they elect cash and lieu, and so our insurance costs went down with staffing changes.
So if someone who is full family who's going to single, there's a significant savings and changes. So.
And we had full family to cash and lieu, so that's a change as well. Under the business office, we had change in staffing at the end of last 21-22, so that's increased to reflect that change in staffing and pay increases. Under purchase services, that went down because we had a staff person who did payroll, who took a leave, maternity leave, and we needed someone to do payroll. So we had a temp come in and do that through our staff, and then when we were doing the staff transition in the other position, that person came back and helped us for that. But we haven't had to use that much this year, so we didn't decrease that. Yes. Under other business services, there's a line for retirement incentive payments. This is the final year of a retirement incentive payment, so that $9,858 will go away next year. Under insurance premiums, we just adjusted what we estimated them to be to what they actually were for general liability, legal liability, cyber coverage, and our inland marine coverage. Going on to page 9. Operation and maintenance. This is the first year in a long time that we've had our custodial maintenance staff in-house, paid by the district rather than on a contract. So we've had to make some adjustments in what we estimated in last June to now. We made staffing adjustments. We have a supervisor that was formerly we had a supervisor for athletics. Now it's a shared position between athletics and operations and maintenance as a supervisor. So that's been shifted here. And then we also have a secretary in half here and half in athletics when we get there. Under purchase services, we had in 21-22, we had some water damage at the middle school that damaged some laptops. So in 21-22, we had an insurance revenue and expenses to get those laptops fixed. This year we had a rainstorm on August 29th, which did some damage. So we have repairs under purchase services, and then under capital outlay, we've had to replace some things. So there's also some storm damage from August 29th. Both of those lines are covered by insurance. Okay. If you look at page 1 under revenues, there's a line called transfers, fund modifications, and other transactions. That's where that insurance revenue comes in, and these are the expenses. The only thing we don't get back is our deductible. Any question on it? Under security services, the next section, we added a line for purchase services. This is a 31A funding for security officers in each building.
So, let me talk. This is not what we're paying. I just want to make sure it is a placeholder. It is currently it would be charged out of 31A. When we do the 97 grant, which is a school safety grant, if we're going to continue our partnership with the city, or whether we want to talk about a third-party security company, such as what they did in Anchor Bay, or hire them directly, like they did in the district to the west, or add more liaison officers. This is where it would be. So right now, 31A is paying for the services that we have with the police department. It is not that total. Let me make sure I'm clear. The last month is not $86,000. Once we get the grant, we will charge our bill to the grant, and that will get reallocated to summer programming. Renee, I mean, she's already got planned, but from a budgetary to pay for it. So I made the decision to bring the police in. As the chief said, it's not a sustainable under their current staffing model. So that will be a conversation that we have as a group. Do we want to continue it in some fashion? And if so, then it's a conversation that I'm having with the city, or if we want to go with the third party, to see, because they would have to bring on staff at the city level. So that, just want to clarify that piece. It is a placeholder right now to pay the bill for the city providing the services to our community for the last month and a half.
And to continue it
if we continue.
The next section is pupil transportation. There's change in salaries there. Most of that is...
Can I interject? And I'm just asking you to think about this. If we continue and at some point I'm going to need direction from you, but if we continue the current model, and let's say the city can do it, it will be about $100,000 for this school year. If we looked at a third party for a whole year, it's about a $200,000 cost based on the rates that I've got. So I'm getting the city's proposal if they wanted what it would truly cost, and I have a proposal from a third party, the company that Anchor Bay is currently using. They are retired police officers, et cetera. That if we want to continue this would be the cost. We would be able to pay for a good chunk of it out of this section 97 grant, but at some point we're going to have to make a decision on whether to be general fund or something. So those are just numbers for you to think about. I'm not asking for any direction tonight because it'll be more of a presentation, but ballpark for this year under current model, it's 100,000 for a full year with a third party is 200,000.
From there, are you're working with the city currently?
I have asked the city for a cost proposal on to continuing it in its variations. What is one person, two person? Do we need one full-time person? Because right now we only have a part-time liaison officer. So they have not gotten me that, but I did talk to Mr. John Moore today, and he promised me that he'd have that by the end of the week. So I will be bringing that back to the board as options. Okay, thank you, Tim.
Going on to transportation, there's an increase in pay, retirement, FICA. Those are pay increases to retain our transportation staff. Under purchase services, that includes repairs. We needed to get our lift at the bus garage repaired, so that cost has been added to the budget. We adjusted our fuel cost, just prices didn't go up as what we expected, so we did modify that down a little bit. And then that's pretty much under transportation. Any questions?
In that transportation salary is the vacant bus driver position that we have. So there's money in there that will be left unspent if we don't fill the position at the end of the year.
Okay, going on to page 10. We have support services, communications, that is reallocating some general or GSRP money. So that's why that went down. Under support services, staff, personnel services, professional development, there's pay increases to retain staff. And as we talked about, #teach under purchase services, there's a line there that will project for #services costs under purchase services. Under support services technical, we increased that to purchase additional PowerSchool software, which is what we use for student accounting, student record keeping, and allows for paperless enrollment, so that's why we added those modules. Under support services pupil accounting, this is the new person, new position, because the personnel changed during the fall. Going on to page 11, we have athletic activities. Again, you can see some salary decrease, but that was taking an athletic director position that was fully budgeted here and splitting it between athletics and operations. And then the secretary salary also split between athletics and operations. Under purchase services, we increased our athletic officials costs. And under capital outlay, we increased that budget because the new helmets we had approved last year did not come in until after June 30th of 22, so we did not report it as a cost last year, so it's a cost this year. That brings our total support services from $8,634,000 to $9,027,000. Any questions on support services?
The athletic activities, is that just, that's not each gym and its contents?
It's the coaches.
Just the coaches,
for
okay.
coaches, supplies for athletics, the athletic officials. It's taking care of the outdoor fields.
Okay. So each of the gym the schools, that's in their own school budget? The gym?
Correct, because that's part of basic instruction.
Okay, thanks.
Under community education and grants, toward the bottom of page 11, that is basically our GSRP family engagement nights funded by the GSRP grant. And then we also have engagement nights funded by Title I in section 41.5. Page 12, it's our child care program. We increased salaries, benefits for added positions and positions that were filled. Under non-public school services, this is where we have to take some of our grant funding and spend it on non-public school students. So we have, in addition to Title I, Title II, and Title IV grants that are allocated to non-public schools, we also have to allocate a proportionate share of IDEA special ed services, which includes speech, teacher consultant, and social worker. That brings our total community services from $179,000 to $231,000. Any questions on community services? All right, we're on the last page, 13. Outgoing transfers, that's where we're transferring funding to the non-bond capital projects fund. That has not changed. We're using that money for future replacement of things like buses, turf, laptops, desktops, copiers, file servers, those types of things. Takes our total general fund expenditures from $20,987,000 to $21,453,000. As Brian mentioned, our revenues still exceed our expenditures by $56,738. Our beginning fund equity from last year's audit, June 30th of '22, is $1,728,934. When you add the $56,000, our projected fund equity at this point at June 30th is $1,785,000. Our ending fund balance percentage, which is our total fund balance divided by our total revenues, we originally projected 8.66, it's at 8.30. There used to be a term that we used called early warning percentage. Apparently the state has had staffing changes as well, so they've changed the definition of what early warning percent is. It used to be total revenues backing out your restricted revenues to get to unrestricted revenues, and then dividing your fund equity by that number, unrestricted revenues. Somewhere along the line we made a change, so now it's just fund balance divided by unrestricted revenues. It's just an information to you. We were at 12.19, and now it's at 11.11. What they use for early warning is now just that line above it, the ending fund equity percentage, which we're projected to be 8.3%, we need it to be above 5, so we're good there.
So just one thing I want to point out to the board that is in this budget, because at some point the grant funds are going to go away, and so we built it. So when you look at the salary, let me back up. In the teachers group is our largest group, and prior to last year, we had in the contract a 1% off schedule payment. I'm trying to think how it was worded. When we settled the contract last year, we took that off schedule payment and put it on the matrix. We pay that 1% out of ESSER 2. But ESSER 3, excuse me, we're on ESSER 3 now. But the 1% in the salary is still in that salary budget. Because at some point when those ESSER dollars are going away, we got to continue that 1% because it's on the matrix in that salary. So if nothing else happened today, our ending should go up because of that. I just want to, just for the sake of transparency here, that it's budgeted there, but we're covering it out of ESSER to make sure that we honor, obviously, our obligation, but when those ESSER dollars go away, we have the fund, general fund, to support what we agreed to last June. Other than that, as I said to you, there will be a couple grants. We just, a week ago, got notified of the 97, which is a school funding grant, the 97C, 97D, 97, or 31AA. We have a child care stabilization grant that we were awarded that, just in the timing of doing the budget, that will be coming that next amendment.
Also 98C that you've been notified we've been awarded, but we don't have the amount yet.
Yes, and speaking of that, would you like to tell about 98C?
98C.
You should be very proud of this.
98C is a learning loss grant, which was a very competitive grant, and you had to do like a ridiculous amount of paperwork and like plans, budget plans, PD plans, all this stuff. Upload it to our transparency page, submit it to the state through GEMSMARS, which is already a mess. And so apparently, because I'm on the executive MACA team, and so everybody was talking about it, and they were like, well, I didn't get a notification, I didn't. And I was sitting there going, I did, we're going to get the money. And so we don't know how much yet. They said to shoot for the moon, so I did, in our grant. So I'm supposed to check back to see when our actual application goes through. But as far as I know, I'm one of the only people that's received the letter for Richmond that we are going to be awarded 98C.
And how much did you ask for?
I asked for nearly $500,000. They said shoot for the moon, so I did.
Absolutely.
And it's good stuff to help our kids and our staff, so it's not, So,
It might cause some shuffling around the other grants that will also,
yeah, if we could pay for it out of there and relieve this, that would be the shuffle.
Right.
and a lot of that is because there's expiration dates on some of these special funding and no expiration dates on other funding, so it makes sense to shuffle and make sure we get them spent. The other item that we'll be coming to is Alfred Ministers, Michigan Public School Employee Retirement System. The state of Michigan has been issuing extra funding to get the unfunded accrued actuarial liability paid down. They put money under 147C2 this year. We don't know how much it's going to be, but we will have to report the revenue and we will have to report expenses. We just don't know what those are yet, but hopefully by the next amendment we'll have that information. But that can be a significant number, but it's money coming in and money going out. We just have to make sure we report. That's the last item I have, unless you have any more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes, thank you.
So in 2 weeks, we will have the action item to approve the amendment. So in that time, if you have any questions, please feel free to call us. We'll be more than happy to go over it in detail.
Thank you. Okay, up next we have board communications, the board brochure, and Just Ask. On January 14th, the Board of Education, we all met and we had a workshop to discuss board superintendent relationships and communication. And during that workshop, we discussed on not only how to restructure our meetings, but also on how to better communicate the community as a board. And with that being said, Board Member Fortuna brought us an interesting, which you all remember, an interesting pamphlet that would have information regarding our meetings and the Board of Education itself with contact information. And we decided as a board that we too would like to do that and offer something to hand out to our stakeholders when they come into our meetings. They'll be standing or set up, hopefully displayed when they come in. We had a committee meeting between, committee was established at our workshop with Margaret Telto, Sandy Fortuna, and myself, and Superintendent Walmsley, where we went over and kind of finalized the brochure and put all the information that was on there, and we now have it uploaded to the board packet for the rest of the board to look at and approve or offer any comment. And also Board Member Fortuna or Board Member Telto would like to add anything as far as our brochure goes. Pamphlet, I guess we were calling it, right?
Yeah, pamphlet brochure. I just wanted to add, I guess, I'm not sure where we're at with this. So like, would we then be approving it tonight if everybody's okay with it? And then have it printed out for the next meeting? Is that the plan?
That is what the plan was.
Yeah, okay.
For everyone to say, yep,
like if there's a misspelling or anything that anybody sees, or saw when they were looking through it earlier, to let us know now, because, or if there's something you don't like or would like it to be changed, because we are hoping to get it approved, so that we can have it printed out and have it available for, whoever attends the board meetings and whatnot for the next meeting.
Right, and the whole point of the pamphlet as a board, what we talked about, people that come to our meetings to kind of get an idea of how our meetings run. There's some stuff on public comment, just that, so that it's available when you come in the door to our meetings. We have a section for the chain of command, and this is going to go on the website as well. And so the chain of command, when it talks, so that people, parents, people in the community understand if you have a issue at the classroom level, what the chain of command is. A lot of things don't involve the Board of Education because we don't run the school district, the superintendent does. And so we wanted a good informational thing for people in our community and who come to our meetings.
This breakdown of the chain of command is great. Some of the things I didn't even know. So it's very good.
we be adding the Just Ask on here?
No, that's a separate, I think that was a separate piece that we're supposed to be talking about next.
This is strictly, if you remember when we talked, this is strictly something we wanted to have when you walked into our board meeting, this pamphlet. It talks about board meetings and yes.
Yeah, because this is like,
Yeah,
specifically.
informational at the board meeting. That's what this is.
Right, but here it says, where did I read that it said something about if you have any other questions, email the board president. In all situations, if your concern is not resolved after the following chain of command, please contact the board president.
That's correct, because as you go through each one of these things, for academic concerns, for instance, once you get to the superintendent, if your concern is not taken care of, you're not satisfied, then you come to the Board of Education, and the board president speaks for the board.
And just
Right,
further.
but we're also adding another piece to all this.
Well, I guess, yeah, but it is separate, and I just want to, maybe this will help you understand, I think where my mindset was with that anyways, is that if somebody had a concern, not just a general question per se, but a concern, and they don't want to necessarily ask a question, go on the new thing or whatever, new platform. They can look here and see, okay, I went to, it was regarding an academic club, for example, because that's, a different thing.
Right.
You go to the advisor, you go through this chain here, and you're not satisfied, that you would email the board president at that point. But
she's not going to then say, go ahead and go on the website. So, see, we're not really.
No, what I'm saying, no, let me finish.
No.
So then, I guess what I'm saying is, she wouldn't then say, go on the website, she would answer the question.
Right.
You know what I mean? And the I don't know if it's even called a website, I guess, this platform.
Right.
Per se, it would be something totally separate than what this is.
Yeah, and I think that communication platform would be more for general questions.
Yeah, general
where
type.
If you are going to reach out to the board president after exhausting the chain of command, you need an answer from the board somehow at that point, or something. Not just, you wouldn't go to because that's an anonymous kind of answer back and forth platform.
Like, hey, what's going, I heard there was cops, I heard there was police officers at the building today. What was that about? Like, that would be more of the Just Ask platform. This is more of I had a problem, an issue.
Yeah, my student.
And went through all of these people, and I don't feel like my problem or issue was resolved.
And this focus was, when we talked about it, our board meetings, when we talked, people that come to the board with issues to our meeting, when the reality is, sometimes if you follow the chain of command, you don't have to come to the board, because somewhere in here, your problem has been solved for you. Correct. The whole Just Ask that we're going to talk about, that is something completely different. That was putting out, it was the whole social media crap. And if we could get people to, if you have a question, ask this question, and it'll be answered, and it goes out there, separate from this. This solely was talking about people being educated when they walk in the door coming to our board meeting.
Right.
That's what this is. Nothing to do with Just Ask.
This is if you have a specific problem, something going on with your student.
No, I understand. I understand
Yes.
this. I totally.
And it also does, and it's not just that. It's not just that. It also has like our, everything about our public comment, how it works, you know what I'm saying?
How
We
our
did make
board
some
meeting
changes
goes.
to that. Basically how our board meeting is supposed to be ran.
We'll talk about the next piece then. and
Yeah,
we'll tie
okay,
it in.
all right.
I mean, however, yeah.
Well, do we want to move, forward? or-
Has everybody looked it over and okay with what they saw in the board packet as far as this pamphlet goes? And we could,
Yeah, I
move
like
forward?
it.
Do we need to make a motion to do that?
No.
No, okay, all right.
Yes, as long as it's printed the right way.
Oh, is that
No, remember this, we don't
Yeah.
need any kind of action
Right.
item. It's just a direction.
Yeah.
If the consensus is from the workshop, this is what we wanted to do, then Brian does it, and it's ready for 2
That's the
weeks.
way I remembered it too. I just wanted to make sure, I guess, for the listening audience and everything, that we don't, you know what I mean? That's why we don't need to do that for this.
Yep.
Unless anybody has any objections, I guess, or want to talk about anything that they see on the pamphlet that they don't.
I think it's
We
great.
all have a role in it. We all
Looks
played a
awesome.
part in
Yes.
it. to some degree. So,
That's
yeah.
exactly right.
Did Jamie and Renee and everybody see a copy of it? Because it's got your guys' information on it. No, I think you guys did a great job.
Yeah, good job.
All right, we will get this printed for the next board meeting. It'll be on display for everybody.
Thank you. Is it also going to be on the website, Brian?
Yeah, it'll be on the website also.
Okay. And maybe also on the Facebook page? I don't know that it needs to be there, I guess. It does need to be on the website, I think.
I think it needs to be on the website.
Yeah, for sure, on there.
Yeah, I could just be proactive because it will be there.
It's going to be on there anyway, once it gets on the website, is what she's saying. It'll be on our Facebook.
Do you want me to click on this? or-
So yes, next up, Superintendent Wamsley will go over our Just Ask here, which is another way
Well,
to
let's talk about how we got there. How we got to wanting to do this before we show how it's going to work.
Did we go over, I don't know why I feel like we went over this last meeting. Did we
We did not.
Okay.
It never was mentioned.
It was never
We
mentioned.
did not.
Okay, so yes, this was also something else that came up during our workshop in January. And we wanted a way to be able to have our stakeholders in the community to ask us questions, ask the board questions from anything that they are interested in. You will come in, you will have to, I believe, fill out your name.
I can click on it.
And yes, and you will fill out your name, but when we answer the questions, it will be anonymous. It will be on an anonymous platform, and we will be sharing the answers. It will be a running thread, so that everybody can see the answers or the questions that were asked previously and the answers to those questions, and we will continue. And you can access this directly on our website, correct?
If you go to the district's main website.
And we were looking as a board, because of things that were happening at the time when we had the workshop, we were looking to have accurate
information get out there.
Positive information, the right answers, as opposed to the social media craze of, well, just put it out there because it's got to be true. That's where we were coming from. What can we do? And believe I had found a school district in the county who did something like this, and that's where we brought it and said, we could try this.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's in hopes to be quicker, right? As I think our
Yes.
response time
Yes.
is going to make it so that it's quicker rather than going through the email
chain and all that, yeah. Like, so if it is, I mean, in an answer to your question, very well, I think, could be directing you to the proper person.
Coach, you know what I mean, that wasn't resolved at that level or whatever, then, the answer probably is gonna direct you to where you need to go next or whatnot. But this is a way to get information, correct information out there quicker, faster for everybody. I think that was the plan.
Yeah, and someplace where people can go and look back to see what questions were answered,
Right.
because they may
Yes.
already have the same question. I can't even give an example, but, the answer before was always, well, email the board, email Mr. Walmsley, email Mr. Walmsley. Well, he doesn't need, in reality, 15 emails explaining the same thing. So if we can get it directed here, the answer is there, and it's in a public forum where anybody can see that answer and see if their questions have already been answered before sending something else.
And others can also share the link and say, well, just ask here. Ask here, ask your question here, instead of others responding to the question.
Which Angela did.
Pages.
Yes, exactly.
Here's your answer, just go into this link.
Which Angela did say, but I just want to make sure it's clear, that when you ask the question, you have to put your name and everything in, but when we post the answer, the question will be anonymous. That's correct, right? Yes, okay. So your name won't show up on that actual question that was asked, but it will show up so everybody sees the question, just not your name.
Who's answering the question?
Let me explain.
Yes, let's hand it over.
Because the two questions that are out there are through the pilot of getting this launched and working out the bugs and kinks. So you basically just click on the button, just ask. Up will pop a form, will ask for your name, email, large so you can see it a little better. Name, email, phone number, question, for to make sure it's not being spammed or all that. You got to check that you're not a robot. When you hit submit button, this question goes to every board member and myself. So So between the board president who speaks on behalf of the board or myself, one of us will be answering the question. You can click here. In this process, we got 2 questions that were asked. Someone filled out the form, so you'll see the template at the top. First question, I was wondering why this year, what year the school was founded. Thanks so much. It took a little bit of research. But basically what I was founding, I can show them dialogue. I did some research on what I could find. It was based on back from 1830, 5 years after the founding of this BB Street corner, the schools were established. So the school district, you could assess somewhere in the 1840s before it was started. So that was one question. We got another question that says, just wondering what happened regarding to the fire trucks on this day. Here's the response. I basically copied the response that was put out by the Director of Student Support Services in answering that. So you can see in the questions that you said, we don't do the person's name, we just leave an email. But the 2 individuals who wrote this got a response back directly to them, so they had the answer before it got put on the website. So the intent is, if you have a question, I want to know how a snow day, how we put nice paved letter on there, it's called, or anything, but that's the intent. So either Ms. Michon or myself will be answering this question. Could be-
But we all get it, all of the board members get to see it, which is nice too. And the answers, we get tagged in the answers as well.
And you can see the questions by just clicking the Just Ask it down, and you don't have to fill out the form to read the questions.
So that is up and running.
Yes, that is up and
So
running.
the other part of that is it's real, it's live.
It's available, so you go on the website, click the ads. Yes.
Get the choice of the board here, remember out here.
Yes.
Get some questions that will be answered factually, accurately.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any more discussion about board communications, the brochure, the Just Ask, and budgetary discussion that we'd like to offer? Okay. Next up, we have the superintendent's district and legislative update.
Okay, I'll start with a public comment from last time. There were 3 people that spoke. None of them asked to be contacted, though I did talk with a couple of them afterwards. I do want to let the board know the certificate that Mr. Ladd presented you with is now hanging in the board office, so it's a good honor. It's a nice honor to receive. It was a surprise. I'm going to go to legislative updates. Last Wednesday, the governor presented her 23-24 budget to legislature, which this officially starts the budget season. I am hoping and very optimistic that we will have a determination of the budget approved well before June 30th. So some of the things in her budget, if you did not hear, she has included a $485 per pupil increase to raise the foundation allowance to $9,608. This is a 5% increase over our current foundation. She's also proposed a 5% increase to special ed funding, English language learners, rural and isolated districts who get service funding. We currently do not receive those. At-risk students funding and the Great Start Readiness Program. She also spoke of by the end of her second term, she would like to be able to have universal preschool for all 4-year-olds, so which would be including increasing the GSRP and expanding eligibility. In her budget, you may have heard on the news, I believe it was last Friday, I know it's over the weekend, a budget to be one of only a handful of states in the union to offer free lunches and breakfast programs to all students. This is one of the Michigan School Board Association's legislative priorities that they saw from their members. Just so you know, if you have not visited their legislative priority website, I would encourage you to read them and to look at what the School Board Association is lobbying. Last Tuesday, Senate Bill 12 passed by a vote of 22 to 6, which would repeal the mandatory retention section of the third grade reading law. If a child is not reading at grade level as required, it still keeps the intervention requirements in the removes the mandated requirement. This bill is now heading to the House Education Committee. The Senate Committee adopted the expansion of the civil rights law on Thursday. I know this, and I'm bringing this up because this is a topic that all districts are facing. Ours is a little more public regarding sexual orientation and gender identity as part of protected categories under the Lincoln Martin Civil Rights Act. This is also a topic that the Michigan Association of School Boards has under legislative reform and supports. The measure is now for full Senate consideration. Tax changes packages passes the House and is held up in the Senate. On January 8th, there was some lengthy negotiations. Obviously, the politics happen as they've done every year in Lansing at the national level. But House Bill 4001 talks about the earned income tax credit would be increased from 6 to 30%, providing more tax credit for those retirement pensions that are taxed, and will be fully phased in by the year 2026. This is one that we are watching closely because any type of tax break, tax relief, oftentimes comes as on the backs of revenue being reduced from one of the school aids. So we look at how the school aid fund is being impacted. Under this pension tax rollback, the school aid fund will be protected by increasing the amount of income tax that's dedicated to the fund. It's the current plan. We'll see whether it goes through. The bill also included the $180 rebate for tax filer, which is all of the 2023 tax year. The bill also puts $500 million deposited into a strategic outreach and attraction reserve fund. There's a lot going on, so I would encourage you to continue either following what you see on the Michigan Association of School Board or just in the news. How they fund it all is what we're watching, and anything that is a structural change to revenue becomes problematic with the school aid fund if you aren't replacing the revenue. As we know, the federal dollars are going away, so all the stuff that has been done with federal dollars has to be maintained some way. As Tammy talked today, GSRP was one, they used federal dollars last year, now they're moving into state dollars. Just watch and see the budget priorities. I will say, based on my initial read of the governor's budget, it is a lot of investment in education. I don't know if any of you ever watched the Sunday mornings, like Meet the Press, and the local ones on Channel 7, Channel 4, but I have to be watching all of them this weekend, or a lot of them this week, I should say. And it was unanimous in every commentator, whatever side of the aisle, on the Democrat and on the Republican side, but the consensus that the defunding of education over the last several years has positioned us in this situation in terms of scores and not drawing people to the field of education, etc. So these would be, last year and this year, would be very large investments in public schools, so I'm very optimistic. At the county level, just a reminder, board members, if you could let me know by Friday about if you're planning on attending the School Board Association dinner at Anchor Bay. It's being hosted there on the 28th. Not a whole lot on the bond update other than the presentation in March regarding this year's summer projects. And the bid packages will be out very soon in terms of collecting those bids. District update, just a reminder, this Friday and this Monday there is no school for students. Friday is a professional development day for teachers, and and the 20th is President's Day. A couple things going on in the district at the elementary schools reported by Ms. Manguti. They've been focusing a lot on Spirit Day and creating some unity in the building. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Students and staff are encouraged to wear pink. Wednesday is the 100th day of school. There will be many activities going on in the classroom there. Thursday is National Kindness Day. Students and staff are encouraged to wear yellow to show happiness and gratitude in honor of National Kindness Day. The 21st is USA Spirit Day, which is a recognition of President's Day the day before. The Lee staff is doing sign-ups for March's Reading Month, so you may get an email. It might come from
We did.
if you can read, please do so. It's a great opportunity to get in the classrooms. The kids love it, the teachers love it. So last week was the preschool formal. It was really cute. To see all the little guys and gals dressed up, and Mr. Gibson did a remarkable job in promoting literacy in it. This is Staples, this is Solon, this is Marge, the secretary, also helped the packets together. All of the preschool staff, they did a really remarkable job. It was a lot of positive. People left there with smiles on their faces. And of course, the little guys got to run around the gym too and play, and ice cream and cookies and blue devil punch and so forth. Ms. Napier and her team are getting ready to start preschool and kindergarten roundup on March 2nd. We will be welcoming the class of 2036. You are a student, you would want to register, you'll be getting the future Blue Devil signs to put in your lawn for the class of 2036. We also have signs for the class of 2037 and 2038, which is our 3 and 4 year preschool. So we will be doing their roundup on March 1st, kindergarten is March 2nd. It's from 5 to 7. Both nights we'll be offering a dinner at the beginning with a short introduction, and then they have a kind of a scavenger hunt of going through all the different classes, the day in the life of a kindergartner and preschool and all the different programs. At the middle school, they have been doing the Kindness Challenge. Today was focusing on asking someone who you don't normally hang out with or associate with to join your group, join you at the kitchen or at the lunch table, to be, get to know different people. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, with the idea of letting someone else go first. When you're going out the classroom door, promoting, kindness and so forth. And, the theme is letting someone else go first. Wednesday is saying thank you. Sincere thank yous to people who do things for you throughout the day. And the goal is to focus on at least 3 times during the day to sincerely thank someone for doing something for you. On the 16th, hold the door open for someone. It's the one that walk through the hall around the classroom. Several middle school students will be attending the Macomb Diversity Summit tomorrow, along with the high school students. This is an annual thing. It's been probably close to 10 years, that students from every middle school, every high school in the county will be at the MISD, and they'll be offered various sessions. It's a great opportunity, especially for our kids, who we aren't as diverse as other districts, but just to see and hear kids who are similar, even though they may be at opposite ends of the county. Many times we have more things in common, but we're different. So it's a great event. I will be down there tomorrow. This is Xavier will be down there. This is May will be for the middle school, and so forth. At the high school, if you're able and willing, on Wednesday we have a blood drive. That's one of the first graphics that are going to put on the marquees. So it's from 8 to 2 at the high school. So if you can give blood, stop by, and we actually leave in the lobby of the auditorium. They are also starting the scheduling series very soon based on the course catalog. So they will be working with students to make them aware of the new courses as well as begin their planning for what type of courses. Last week was Snow Coming Week. It had a Spirit Week. There was the Boys and Girls Basketball game on Friday. culminating with the dance on Saturday. It was a great week last week.
Brian, what was that dollar amount for the increase, 400 and what?
The governor's increase was 485.
So 485 is it? And is that, everybody gets that?
That's the minimum that every district will be funded, and then there are still districts who receive more than that, based on other things, but that's not the minimum foundation.
I'm just going to throw out there, like I do all the time, and I continue to write my letters and all of that, that this, while this is really exciting, but until we get to the point where everybody gets the same amount of money, it's really hard to compare school districts and test scores and teachers and all that kind of stuff until everybody's getting the same foundation. So I will continue to write my letters. I just want to make sure they knew I had the right 485.
This gets us closer, but it doesn't get everybody.
Right? And that's what it should be.
Is it 485 or 458? 485.
I have 45 from the MSB, Michigan School Board Association.
I thought it was 458.
Thank you.
458 still good too.
Do you have to make an appointment for the blood drive, or can you just come in?
Okay, next up, we have items of interest from the Board of Education. Board Member Sutton, anything from you this evening?
I'm good.
Board Member Fortuna?
I just want to mention, I heard for the first time, and I didn't go and watch it, unfortunately. I probably would have, had I have known ahead of time, and maybe that's my fault. But that there was like a powder puff volleyball game or something.
Oh, for the boys?
Yeah.
It was for the first time.
Yeah, for snow coming week. Was it the first time this
First
year that happened?
Last week, Wednesday, you do it, so Wednesday
At
workshop.
our workshop.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, that's when I heard about it, so I just thought it was a bunch of that's pretty cool, that's all.
Board Member Cunningham, anything?
I just wanted to comment on the marquee signs. They're awesome. Very nice.
I guess that would be kind of a bonus up there. Yep. On a little side note, last week we did our training on Friday, was it? The second training, and with every building's got a team that they have the training, and the first one didn't go as well as we planned. We had the second one last Friday, and then they're starting to become a competition among different people, like Ray Lynn puts up the sports stuff, and Marge is putting up the CTE. When Marge saw that Ray Lynn had basketballs moving on hers, she's trying to up her ante, and
Thought about it all weekend, had to come to me this morning. All right, this is the plan.
Andrea had to change the logo because she wanted something to capture attention for the blood drive, so there's a big blood drop on the marquee. So but each person in the organization, just so you know, has a goal. The buildings will publish everything at the building level. Press will do the sports and enter the school safety measure. Renee's more on critical initiatives, district. I'll post at the board meeting. And so we all have Jamie will be posting job postings over. So we all have roles. So you will see various aspects of people's creativity. There's a lot you can do with that marquee.
No, I think I guess I'll put you on the spot, Angela, just because we wanted to recognize Mike at Strikers, at the store.
Mike,
yes.
I mean, from Strikers, the roll shop, and he's been extremely helpful, helping out people and students this year, along with, Jimmy at Strikers.
Jim Carl.
Jim Carl, both of them have been extremely helpful this year. We came up short not having a coach there for a while, I think, doing that, and they really stepped in and helped our kids out tremendously, and didn't have to, they are,
They
help out another
traveled.
school district
Right.
often, so it was nice for them to help us out,
Yeah, they traveled to wherever we were competing to
my kid said that he graduated from Richmond, and when he was on the bowling team or something, they were down.
Since he was on the bowling team,
also,
first,
so
he
he's
first bowling.
paying it forward, and I just wanted to run for
Thank you. Board Member Toto, anything to say? Board Member O'Donnell?
Nope, I was just going to comment on the signs also. It was amazing.
Thank you. With that, I had nothing. I shared with earlier today. With that being said, we come to our portion of the meeting, which is public comment. Public comment is not an open and answer question. This is time for, we'd like to come up and approach the board. You may make a comment for 3 minutes. And sign in if you have any comment, if you would like to have your question answered by Superintendent Wamsley or the board president. This is a shot. And if you can sign your name in.
Right here.
The sheet there, you'll put your name. And if you could just check the box afterwards. From you or all three whom you'd like to be flagged from.
Is that what the timer?
Timer's right now. See somebody back there. Didn't realize we had.
All right, well, just to let you know, it's my first time. It's a short question.
Okay, could you please state your name?
Megan Powers.
Thank you.
I was wondering if the school district would be interested in the Youth for Christ program that's offered throughout, it's offered, there's like 31 schools that do it right now in Macomb and St. Clair County. And, they're just putting it out there if your school would be one of them, make it 32, out of the, instead of 31, make it 32. Give the kids a chance, if they're interested, it's, it's not for, it's at the, if you can have it at the school, it's easier for kids to be at the school with certain programs. I don't know what is allowed and what isn't allowed. What extracurricular, if you call it that, activity, but I got some flyers here and pass it out and hopefully you guys say yes, because it's really important.
Your number there?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Someone's going to be short. Oh, do
We can share it as well.
Thanks for listening.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak to the board? Yes. Just please state your name as well.
Okay, year and a half I've been coming, and haven't come up here till now, but I'm totally just happenstance.
Thank you.
But I just had to comment on the presentations tonight of the curriculum. I am blown away. When you think back of, 60-some years ago, what was offered, and I'm going to be doing a lot of community talking about that as I go forward, because it's something to be very, very proud of, and the students, I can't imagine having a book that have to try to decide what you're going to choose to do with all those wonderful choices. So thank you for all your work. Renee, you're amazing. It's a lot of work, and it just is, blesses my heart to see all these moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak to the board tonight?
closed session. I'm looking for a motion to closed session.
Pursuant to Section 8H of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, I move that the Board of Education go into closed session to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute. Support.
And this will be a roll call vote.
Candace?
Here.
Aye. Aye. Kelly? Aye. Margaret?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
And aye.
And motion passes. Any opposed, Megan? Motion passes. You want to call it now, or we leave for closed session at 10:44, or is that stuff?
No. Angela, I want to say that we are going to be, we're getting back to the not people.
We will be having one other closed session after this, but we will not be coming back to conduct any more business. So if you need to, you may, but there will be nothing.